Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. We have the whole crew here today. My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me, we have Josh Torres.
Ready to spend a lot of money on Final Fantasy again.
We have Adam Vitale. We have Chow Min Wu.
How's it going?
And James Galizio.
Hey, folks.
At the time of recording, it is February 4th. We have been talking for a long time over the last several podcasts about how stacked February is, but we're not quite there yet. A lot of things start releasing next week and beyond, when we can talk about all the new releases for February for this year. So for this podcast, a lot of what we've been playing is either just releases that have been coming out throughout January, releases in other genres, or we've been playing things that we can't quite talk about yet. So this podcast will just be kind of tying up a few loose ends, maybe talking about a little bit more about Forspoken this week. We did have one new demo released this week and a few more coming up that we'll probably take the chance to talk about over the next couple of podcasts. So even though it's going to be very busy very soon, we're not quite there yet. So we'll enjoy a little bit of a reprieve as we go into potentially the busiest month of the year. And we'll just see kind of where the conversation leads us. So
we really want to talk about what we're up to, but we just can't right now. We really do want to talk about it though.
Yeah. And it's not like neener. We've got some things that are working on behind the scenes. It's just that we don't want to break embargo. We play the games as they release. Sometimes we get access the day they release. Sometimes we get access months ahead of time. It's really hard to plan a schedule around it. And when you have a weekly podcast, sometimes it just lies where it lies. So you can't always get everything to fall nice and tidy in the most convenient fashion. The main headline of this week, actually, out of all things, is that we had a release of a demo for the new Theatrhythm game. And I know we have at least two people on this podcast that are very big into rhythm games and Theatrhythm in general, and that would be James and potentially Josh. Now, I obviously see these games as we cover them on the news front here at RPG Site, but I played a little bit of Taiko, but I don't play rhythm games generally, not out of any reason, just because I just don't happen to get around to them. But this is for the Theatrhythm Final Bar Line. Has a new demo available, and I know a lot of people have been playing this and sharing their thoughts and experiences with this game. And from my impressions as an outsider, it seems like a lot of the takeaway is very, very positive. But I'll hand it off maybe to Josh first to talk about their experience so far with the Theatrhythm Final Bar Line demo. Basically, what is it? How are you feeling about it? And your impressions with the demo so far?
Yeah, I've been a really big fan of the Theatrhythm game since their original release on like the 3DS. I think the first one was on 3DS too, also. And yeah, this is like kind of like the rhythm series that celebrates the legacy of the Final Fantasy series and all its music. And by extension, there's been DLC that's came out on the 3DS games that like extended to other Square Enix properties like Nier, Saga, Mana, etc. And for a long while after the Theatrhythm curtain call on 3DS some years ago, we didn't see Theatrhythm for a while because the Theatrhythm that came after it was only exclusive to arcades, mainly Japanese arcades, but there were some Theatrhythm arcade machines like in Round 1 arcades across the US, for some time. I don't know if they're still there or not, but that was like the only way to access them, like if you happen to live near a Round 1 or an arcade that had that. And even then, the arcade control scheme for it, it was something that I never got time to get used to, because it obviously was fundamentally different from how the 3DS games handled it. Because with the 3DS, you could either use a stylus or just use the buttons and the stick on the 3DS, while the whole layout of how the arcade did it felt very weird to me, and I didn't want to spend the time to try and learn it intimately. So I didn't really get into it. I played it here and there, but not as much as as I did on the 3DS. So when they announced Theatrhythm Final Bar Line, I was very, 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 very excited, because I spent hundreds upon hundreds, of almost thousands of hours on Theatrhythm on 3DS. They're just very, very fun rhythm games, and the way that they're presented, and how there's different kinds of stages, and how it's obviously there's a whole chunk of it is a nostalgia trip for having an appreciation of Final Fantasy music in general. Just a lot of iconic songs, OSTs throughout the years.
And now that when we were covering, as this game was announced last year, this one seems like it's incredibly comprehensive. I know there was a little bit of weird details about what was pre-order, what was DLC, what was added, what was extra. But it seems like in general, this game has pretty much any Square Enix property you could think of. You got to get pretty niche to find something that's excluded from the song list here.
Dragon Quest isn't on there because the Dragon Quest. It's kind of muddy. Like like Dragon Quest did have a Japan only like Theatrhythm game, but then you get into that whole deep rabbit hole of like there's a lot of baggage behind the now dead composer
Sugiyama.
Yeah,
it's basically a war crime denier. Basically.
Yeah. So it's a very complicated history, and people like if they know, they have to sort out their feelings around that, and I can understand kind of the hesitation of not including Dragon Quest.
Well, even beyond that, I'm pretty sure they have to go through the Sugiyama estate to get access to those songs if they wanted them.
Exactly.
So
it's I mean, who knows?
A couple of hurdles for them to clear if they wanted them.
Yeah. So who knows? If this Theatrhythm Final Bar Line is super successful, how they'll decide to support it moving forward. Because the 3DS game Curtain Call, they supported that for years, for a long time. It was a while. And in this one's the nice thing about this game is up front, if you're just buying the base game, you can already unlock 385 songs around there just in the release alone. And if you want to expand that to get all the songs, it'll be a little over 500, 502. And the nice thing about that is all that DLC is coming out by the end of March as well. They already gave dates, so everything seems to be they're all coming out in a somewhat timely manner. Unlike when it was on the 3DS, it took many months to finally get.
Wait, I was under the impression all the DLC coming out before March or April was Season Pass 1.
Was it the Season Pass 1? I thought it was all three.
Then I thought there was more Season Passes coming later.
I don't know. I thought that those dates were just for all of them. I don't. Okay, I take it back. I don't know what the release schedule is for all the Season Passes. Apparently, so
and surely it's cheaper than the 3DS version when you're buying all the songs DLCs back then, right?
I think so. James, you probably have a better memory of how much it costs.
I don't remember.
Okay. But either way, getting back on topic, Theatrhythm Final Bar Line demo came out. I downloaded on PS5. I wanted to see what sorts of features they had out of the box. They're already offering quite a bit, 30 songs and kind of showing you the ropes on what it has. The first thing I checked was the settings menu, and there's some nice features with it. One of the nice features that comes in this one is you have the option of darkening the background to the point where you can completely block out the background, because as you're normally when you're playing, you see your party of 4 traveling on a field beating up monsters. They can unleash their summons when they fill up a bar, and there's a big AoE attack, and it puts a lot of effects on the screen. But if you just want to focus on the notes, you can have the option to either darken the background through several levels to the point where you're just you don't see the background anymore. You can just solely focus on the notes, which is a nice thing, because it could get pretty busy in the background. And also really funny sicko mode type of setting that they put is you can inflict the fat chocobo mod on you, which means what the fat chocobo summon usually does is it blocks your field of vision. So normally when you play this game, you can see notes incoming, but when you apply the fat chocobo mod, you can actually block out the lane, so you don't know where when and where the notes are coming, and there's several levels, so you can put it up to the point where you don't know where the notes will be until they're right there, unless you fully memorize the song. So you can it's one of those things I don't know why you did this, but okay, sure, that's great, I guess. And how the demo works is it gives you, I think, 6 series to choose from. You can either unlock FF2, FF5, FF7, FF13, FF14, and FF15, and then you can play through the first 4-ish songs. Sometimes it'll give you like maybe 6 or 7, depending on like the series. Like I know like FF5 like had like a good bit along with FF14. And like at first you have like this one like title like unlock key. So like you unlock the first series, it'll give you like some party members. So like I unlocked FF13 first. I got Lightning, Hope, Vanille, and Snow. And just like the 3DS game, there's like a light RPG aspect to it where you could like when you're completing songs with like your party members, they're gradually leveling up and learning skills that you can slot in. Sometimes during like levels, when you beat enemy waves, they'll drop a treasure chest. Sometimes when those treasure chest drops, they might like drop a summon for you. And sometimes during like when you complete certain quest conditions, they might have like you can unlock like an airship, and like that's just like mostly a cosmetic thing of like when you go to a stage, like you'll see your airship drop off your party members.
So back it up for me, just for someone who hasn't played Theatrhythm. So when you get a party member in this game, when you say you unlock Lightning or Snow or things like that, what does that mean in the context of Theatrhythm?
So it's basically just you unlock the FF13 like title to like play their songs, and right away they'll give you your party members right away. Of like you'll get all 40 party members right away, and you like go to your edit party, and like you can slot in your party members. And as you unlock more party members from other series, you can like mix and match like those characters as well. And what that basically means, because like all these characters have like their own classes. Like there's like a physical class, a magical class, a healer class, and a defense class. And obviously the physical and magic classes, they deal in like physical and magic DPS, and like those are good for trying to defeat enemies as fast as possible. Because at a very basic level, what you're really trying to do in these songs is obviously trying to like completely successfully complete these charts as as much as you can. But as you're completing these songs, you're like your party members are unleashing attacks on the enemies. So at certain like times during the song, there'll be like rainbow auras around certain notes, and like these are notes where like you really want to get a critical hit, which means like try to like line up like a very timely hit on these as much as you can, because if you time a critical hit on those like special notes, like it'll activate like special like attack skills of your party members, where like they'll do a lot of damage if you hit those successfully. So as you're defeating enemies, you're racking up loot essentially, and also like you're grabbing up experience points for them. And then obviously for the like the healing and defense classes, like if you're struggling through a song and it's like every note that like you get a bad hit on or you miss, it'll deal damage to you. So obviously the healing characters will heal your HP, because there you do have a shared HP meter throughout songs. And then the defense classes obviously like make it so like missing those notes or getting bad notes like won't hurt as much. So that's what it basically means. But I mean RPG light, it's like very, very RPG light. Like there's like no like equipment system or anything aside from like the summons. And like all the skills that you learn is very linear. So like at certain level, there's like at level 7, Lightning will learn this skill. At level 15, she'll learn this skill. At level 20, she'll learn this skill. And like
so it seems like it's more like the flavor of the idea of an RPG rather than being an RPG itself, which makes sense because it's a Final Fantasy based. Well, I say Final Fantasy based, even though I guess that's more just general Square Enix now.
Yeah, like if you want to get deeper into it, like there is certain like party building compositions that like you can start thinking about. Like say, like for example, like if I forgot her name from FF5, but like there's this like character from FF5 that like has a skill that enhances the physical damage of all party members. So you want to pair her with characters that deal physical damage and not magical damage. So it's stuff like that. So she'll be like the buffer of your party, and like you want to make sure that like you have a lot of physical damage dealers with her, because she'll obviously make them output more damage, which is a net positive for you, which makes them kill shit faster. So it's like very, very light party compositions to like think of, like if you want to go down that rabbit hole, which I definitely want like to do. And this game has like dozens and dozens upon of like characters that you can choose from, not just like heroes but also villains down the line as well. And you can like see, and you can mix and match. There's like you have complete freedom of like how you want to mix and match and like compose your party once you like unlock those characters as well. And every song like throughout these stages have like quests associated with them, like a very simple quest. Like, say for example, one of these quest types will be like, don't get a game over, or another quest type like, hey, have 60% of like the notes that are like in this chart, like hit them with good, like at least a good note, and like not, and so you're not missing them or like getting a very mistimed hit. Like getting a good is very easy in this game. Just like simple quests like that. But then there'll be tougher quests where we'll be like, okay, you have to do it on this difficulty, say like ultimate difficulty, and you have to beat like the boss of the stage could be like Odin or something. So that sort of quest, obviously, one, you have to like start practicing, like the ultimate chart, like difficulty of that quest, and like, getting used to the chart of that song, and like, basically try, clearing it, and also having a party that's like buff enough that can like defeat Odin as well, because you kind of, you'll have his defenses and HP totals. So you have to start thinking about like, okay, how do I want to tackle Odin in this quest? Do I want like a magical based party, a physical based party, and what characters do I want to mix and match to like achieve that goal? And like, and these quests like will reward you just like collectibles. Like they're not like super game altering things. It's like, okay, you like got a Collectopedia card of like that shows this artwork. It's kind of like a small like completionist thing that like will, for people who like that sort of stuff, that will give them that additional incentive of learning the songs and like overcoming this challenge. Like, for some of these songs that require, some of that can trick your sorts of quests. Like, so it has a nice gameplay loop in the single player aspect of that. Obviously, like the multiplayer stuff isn't unlocked in this demo, so I didn't get a chance to try it. But it feels really, 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 really good to control. Like I was playing on my PS5 controller. And the nice thing about this game is like all like aside from like notes that like require like a directional input, which is like just your left or right analog stick, you can flick it up, down, left, right, depending on what the note is. Sometimes like it has you like, hey, have both of your sticks point upwards or downwards, or have them like face away from each other diagonally, for some of the charts. Other than that, like you could hit any button like or any note with like either the L1 or every trigger or any face button or any D-pad button. So it's like it's up to you to decide like what control scheme and what buttons are most comfortable to you. So like for hold notes, for example, like at the same time, I like using my L1 and R1 for those. But like for like single notes, I might want to like, find a setup that's like more comfortable for me. Like I may be comfortable with like X and triangle for like some notes, but I can do circle for others. Or like if I want to mix it up, like for incoming things, I can do like square and like L1 or square and L2. Just any combination of like triggers, face buttons, and D-pads, like whatever is comfortable to you, it'll allow. Aside from those directional notes, and it feels really nice. Like works. It's once you set up like exactly like the speed at which the notes are coming to you, and like in your input delay to like match the latency of what you're seeing on screen and all that, and how that can be automated for if you wanted to. Like you can have that all set up automated and see if it works for you. Once all of that is firing on all cylinders, and like it feels really, really nice. I've been going on and on about this. How about you, James? I've been even enjoying the demo.
I've just played a little bit of it because, well, I know I'm going to put a shit ton of time into this when the full version comes out. I've already like paid off my pre-order, so I'm just waiting. So I played the demo. It's like, okay, how does the arcade version translate over? It translates over well. Awesome. Gonna wait for the full game to come over just because there's so many songs.
You know what they're getting itself to, yeah. The nice thing about the demo too is like it's save data transfer as well. So if, like people who want to try it out now, like all the they can save all the progress that they've been doing over to the full game. The one thing about this demo, which I understand why they do it, because it's a demo to like sell it to people who've like never played Theatrhythm, but there are a lot of like, well, not a lot, but there are some forced unskippable like cutscenes or like trailers. There's like the intro movie is unskippable, so there's one, and then the other.
The intro movie is full of soul, so I don't
say it's cool, but like it's not the first time boot up. Like it's unskippable. It's like for people who want to get to the game already, like me, because I'm a fucking sick freak. I was like, fuck, I can't get to it immediately. It's like, all right, I guess.
Just imagining like Josh booting up the demo, being like, I need to play it, just shaking as the intro movie is going.
You understand how many times I pressed every button on my controller to like skip that intro movie? I was like, there's nothing.
I just pressed 3 buttons. I pressed A, B, and then the start button, and none of those worked. So I was like, okay, I'll set my controller down, just watch this. I'll enjoy my movie.
Let's see, my order of buttons was start, and then square X, and then L1, R1, circle, R3, L3, and then I did the face pad things on the touchpad, and then I just wanted to throw my controller. I'm like, okay, what are we doing? So once you finally get through that intro and you do some of like the basic tutorial stuff, it'll do another like those info slides about like, oh, like more about this game, and then like the very first one of those that you encounter, it'll say like view like trailer or movie or whatever, and like it won't give you an option to like skip that. So like you view it, and it's like a full on 3.5 to 4 minute trailer of like the whole game of like, you know, some songs from every like mainline FF and like all the things. Like it's a nice trailer, like for sure, but once again, it's more things that separate you from playing the fucking video game. But after you're done with that, the only thing you have to deal with after that is like those info sliders once in a while after playing like 3 to 4 songs. And then like you can like skip, and then you can just like close them after you're done. You don't have to ever watch another unskippable thing after those 2, but you still have to do the info sliders.
Yeah.
But I understand why they do it, because, you know, they want to sell this game and like, look, this game's really cool. Even though they really are also go ham on like this game also has a shit ton of DLC coming, and here are some songs like To Xanarkin that are only for the deluxe edition as well. Fuck, what the fuck? All right, I guess, but I was already a mark, you know, because I was like, I liked Theatrhythm before, so of course I'm gonna fucking pay $100 on release day to just like, get everything and then not worry about anything else. So of course, and I tried the PlayStation 5 version. You tried out the Switch version, right, James?
Yeah, I'm playing the Switch version.
How's the Switch version holding up?
Oh, it runs fine. Like I did a few songs on Supreme and like no issues.
Does the Switch version do touch controls at all or no?
I don't know, because I've been playing it docked.
I don't think it does, but I was wondering.
Does it have motion controls with the Joy-Cons?
No.
Oh, yeah.
So what are the weird things that like people may not know like about Theatrhythm, or like may not get used to off the bat? It's like, because a lot of people played the Theatrhythm 3DS because it's like the stylus. There are like certain notes where like you have to like follow like a certain like line on it, and like with the stylus, it's pretty like self-explanatory. It's like, okay, follow this with the stylus on the 3DS touchpad. But like it's like, but if you do it with the controls only, which like this game forces you to do, and then it mimics how like the older Theatrhythm games did it. It's like it's deceivingly presented to you because you think it should be precise, but like, well, how these notes basically go is like you can just like hold down the button to start like the path that like it's going to you, and you can go immediately up or down depending on like what the path is, and you'll never overshoot it. As long as you're holding down or up, generally you'll follow that path, and you don't have to worry about like being very, very like caressing it to like follow that path. Just go straight up or straight down, depending on what that path note shows you, and you will not overshoot it. You'll be fine. So like it's one of those things that's like, because I remember one of my friends was like, I don't understand how this path note works without my stylus. It's like, okay, don't worry about it. It's like oh, okay, I get it now. But other than that, it's fine. I can't wait for the full release. James and I are at the very least, there'll be never like downtime ever again of like, what should I play? It's like, it's always going to be, the default answer is going to be Theatrhythm always, because there's always going to be a play for sure.
Yep.
And the full release of that game is February 16th. So right around when everything else is releasing. But it's
wait, hold on. Important question, because this will decide what type of person you are, right? So like at the very beginning of the game, when I was telling you like you can unlock 1 of 6 series. James, what was the first series you unlocked?
14.
See, I knew it. For me, yours? FF13.
Hey, that's got
13 would have been my 13 would have been my second choice, because I remember from the original, like on the 3DS games, 13 had probably the strongest soundtrack for
I mean,
are there any 13.2 tracks?
No, I mean there's 13.2 tracks in the full release, but not in the demo. It's just base 13.
I actually like the 13-2 soundtrack more than the base 13.
I don't think that's actually a lot of people like 13.2 soundtrack. It's very
like 13
it's very good. I love 13's OST. I love it.
13 and 13.2, like I can think of off the top of my head 3 or 4 songs from those games. You can include 13.2, 5 or 6. And then I think, what were the? Did you say 15 was one you could unlock at the start?
Yeah, you can unlock 15 as well.
Maybe this is just because I like 13 more than 15, but I didn't think either were great. And this isn't that we're not trying to review them here, but like I can't think of tracks from 15. I'm trying to, and I'm
like
blanking.
This twangy song that plays on, it's almost like a Route 66 sort of thing.
Oh, dude, I love that tune. I just remembered it right now. I'm like, yeah, that theme rules. But I'm sure it's like the theme that plays when they're pushing the car at the beginning of the game.
Yeah,
that theme rules.
Yeah, but blinded by light and Sun with Waterscape and all the other ones in 13.
Yeah,
13's got a great soundtrack.
Good. Yeah, love it. It's good. But I just cannot wait to like unlock so many tracks to be like, oh yeah, this game shot. This song was good. Yeah,
Adam's like Saga. I will play Theatrhythm now,
dude. I
play Passionate Rhythm or Ardent Rhythm or whatever they call it now.
That's right.
They keep changing the name.
They also have some Live Alive tracks in those DLC as well, so you can play Megalomania if you want.
Did they have what do you call the Chinese song? The one.
Wait, I don't think so. They have the Steel Titan theme.
That's a great one.
They have the main theme, Megalomania, and I forgot what was. I think there was another one, but I forgot what it was.
Gigamania.
No, it wasn't Gigalomania. I would have remembered that. But it would have been funny if they included Gigalomania. I would have loved that. But that's also hard to like. That's kind of tricky to make a note chart of it for the type of game Theatrhythm is, because like Gigalomania like has like a long lead up to like the chorus.
Yeah, that is true.
But it's a banger once it gets there though.
Well, as we go into late February, we'll have another chance to talk about the full release of Final Bar Line at some point, I'm sure. But impressions of the demo seem really strong. I didn't know that it had I wasn't sure if a game like this could have some sort of carryover, but now that you've described how some of the unlocks work, it's good to know that it does have the carryover opportunity for those that want to play it early.
You want to know what the fucked up, how this game's going to destroy me?
How so?
So the summon stones that you unlock in this game, it's like basically equipable summons, right? And then, but these summons kind of have like almost like rarities assigned to them, because there's like a random chance, like when a summon stone drops from a stage, they can have up to 3 attributes, and those are like all rollable attributes as well. So they can have like some that like will power them up, or some that will give them more experience, and then you can share these like summon stones like online as well, and multiplayer as well. So like if you have like a group of friends playing, it's like I have a really cool summon stone, so you can like kind of form a community that like kind of gathers around that too. It's like, okay, I'd love give me your summon stone. So like there'll be might be like infinitely replayable aspect for me of like me just grinding summon stones in this game to make like the perfect party composition. Oh fuck, I'm gonna die.
To what extent does you said that the demo obviously doesn't have multiplayer components. Like, to what extent is this a multiplayer game?
I mean, it's like an optional multiplayer mode, but like the way that they presented it seems really compelling, like meta progression wise. So up to 4 players can play with each other. They're all playing the same song, but they don't have to play on all the same difficulties. So let's say some people want want to play on like some easier difficulties. Like they can absolutely do that. And as you all play the song, there'll be like power ups that you gain that you can like either boost your whatever up, like maybe boost your score up temporarily, or you can like send like things to like fuck with your friends, like the Fat Chocobo, for example. Like you can use that to like cover their lanes temporarily, like do stuff like mess with them, and then like at the end of each stage, like they'll like the first place will get dibs on like the Collectopedia card or whatever card system thing that they have. That like isn't like there like to alter gameplay or anything, but it's just like kind of like a collectible that you can like start building on your like online profile, and like they have first dibs, and then second place has like second dibs, and so forth. So like there's like a collectible aspect to like, hey, I want to collect all these things like for my online profile card as I'm like playing with my friends or like strangers, and then obviously along with sharing the summon stones as well. Like, if you found a cool summon stone, you can like share it with your friends and so forth. So it's like kind of like just a nice little like incentive. It's not like anything gameplay altering or anything gameplay changing, but it's just like it's a nice like incentive to just include in there as well. And also it supports local multiplayer with like a second player. Like you can have like a second player like take care of like half the notes. Like say you take the top 2 and like the second player will take the bottom 2 lanes.
That's always kind of fun, just for like a little casual get together.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a bit of a tangent, but it's the only way I have an analog to draw to this. But I forget if I talked about it on the podcast, but I was playing the Theatrhythm festival that came out on Switch last year, just a few months ago. And like I don't hardly ever play rhythm games. So when I was asking about motion controls, that's obviously got the drum controls. Like, and if you don't have the actual drum controller, you just got the waggle of the Joy-Cons, and it doesn't feel very good. But it was a fun little diversion.
It's very difficult to like emulate the Taiko experience at home. Like you really have to be at an arcade to really like get the full Taiko experience, because of like even like how the arcade like setups like the Taikos like those Taiko setups at the arcade like are like really built for like abuse. So like
and then you see like a Taiko cabinet at my local round 1 where they lost the drumsticks. So their solution was they took broomsticks.
No.
I literally complained to their front desk and told them, "You are damaging your system. Stop."
Yeah, dude, what the fuck? Don't do that to your Taiko. I swear you can find Taiko drumsticks. You can do it.
This might be a dumb question, but how are Taiko drumsticks different from like regular drumsticks?
They're usually like hollow and they're like plastic.
Yeah. It's mainly material and durability. Like the density on broomsticks are like they.
Well, I was just wondering why don't you just too hard. Use like what would be the problem with using just like regular drumsticks? Are those too heavy, too hard?
They hit too hard. There's specific sticks that you can use for Taiko. They make them. They're called Maibachi, and they look like. 1 second, I'm
sure you could find replacements to use. Some.
Well, why do that when you can just chop a broom in half? And
yeah, usually this is what people use their Maibachi. You can get them really cheap on Amazon. They're like a very soft wood. Works well enough for
you don't need to be confined to like the drumsticks that like the Bandai Namco gives you. You can just get your own, but don't get broomsticks, or like don't substitute them for like stuff that will like can legitimately damage like your setup, because like repairing Taikos themselves is not fun.
I always remember like I went to I had a grandma that lived in San Francisco, and I would go to visit her, and there was this Taiko cabinet at the like very, very small like Little Tokyo in San Francisco that I remembered really enjoying it the one time I went. Then I visited her again like 4 or 5 years later, and that machine was completely beat up, and you could just tell that people had not treated it right. It was just like heartbreaking.
It's the fate of Taiko machines in arcades, man. I mean, I'm sure hopefully they're treated better in like in Japanese arcades, but in Western arcades, man, people don't give a fuck.
Yeah, it's like I used to be like, oh man, I wish round 1 would have more recent Taiko cabinets, but then I look at how people treat them, even when round 1 themselves aren't fucking it up. It's just like I get it. I understand. It sucks, but I get it.
Yeah.
People over here see a drum and their first thought is, how hard can I hit it?
Yep.
Well, now I feel bad for bringing up this tangent.
Look, it's legitimate, okay? It's a real problem. It's been forever a problem. But, that's how it is.
Yeah, now I'm just thinking of, it's like, I'm so glad that this Theatrhythm is coming out, because I had a chance to play the arcade cabinet like a couple of times. My local round 1 got rid of it like right before the pandemic, so I've been like withdrawal ever since.
Yeah, we really need this. What's the release date? How many more days?
2 weeks, a little under 2 weeks.
Fuck. I'll try to survive.
Well, thank you, Josh and James, for giving us a chance to look at Theatrhythm Final Bar Line, which is coming out on February 16th. So just a demo, but it was the new thing for this week, so I figured we'd put it here at the top of the podcast. Here, slotted at the second spot, is Forspoken, which obviously was the headliner of our podcast last week and just released, in late January. I do know that I haven't been able to finish this yet. I do know that Josh had put some time into it, and I believe James had put some time into it. And I figured we gave it, the pretty thorough rundown last week, so we'll probably maybe try to keep it shorter here, but just wanted to see if anyone's made more progress on Forspoken, if impressions have changed at all. And since Josh and James kind of headed up the discussion on Final Bar Line, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I didn't have a chance to talk about Forspoken last week.
Yeah. Well, so, okay, maybe we'll just hand it off to you, because I think I saw that you had said you had tried to play it on Steam Deck, but didn't have a lot of luck. Maybe you tried to play it on your main PC. I'm not sure. So what did you try on Forspoken last week or this week?
So I did mostly play it on my PC. I'm going to be writing up something about it on Steam Deck, because even though it's not supported, like before launch, weirdly enough, they tried to make it sound like it was going to be supported at launch. Like even during like Valve's TGS thing, they brought some of the Forspoken dev team onto their like kind of like a panel thing to talk about it.
Oh, that's good. I didn't know that.
And the most recent like update for Forspoken, it's like highlighting, oh yeah, there's some Steam Deck improvements. And it's like, I mean, sure, in some spots it'll mostly hit 30 FPS, but then there's others where it's like, this is 15 FPS in a cutscene, and there's a QTE here for some reason.
Oh god.
Yeah.
And then I had a crash, and I was like, well, I guess that rebooted my entire fucking Steam Deck.
Dude, that reminds me of fucking Bayonetta on PS3, of it having like the performance on that, along with the fucking awful QTEs in it. Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
So let me back up. Like, they added a QTE specific for Steam Deck? Wait, what was
No.
Oh, you're go ahead.
No, there was like a QTE and a cutscene for Forspoken. You probably know exactly which cutscene I was talking about, Josh.
Yeah. It's the most random QTE. I'm like, oh, there's like a QTE.
This is my first time hearing this, and my thought is that meme, what year is it? Like QTEs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was the most random thing. I'm like, oh, this game has QTEs. Great. Awesome. I didn't know either.
I was going to ask, what everyone's reaction be if they got rid of the QTE fight in Resident Evil 4? I know it's kind of off topic, but what?
I know what you're talking about, because they already said there's going to be no QTEs in Resident Evil 4 Remake. Ciao.
Oh.
I know.
This is also off topic, but I was watching some Final Fantasy 13-2 footage just randomly, and I forgot that game had a bunch of QTEs.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite QTE, it's a game that I don't really think that highly of, but that Shadow of Mordor game that just ends in a QTE boss fight. I never played this.
Man, I was so pissed off when it was a QTE boss fight. That was the fucking era. Oh, I hated that era. Here's our final boss. It's a QTE. It's like, cool.
So the one thing I'll say about Forspoken on a general level outside the Steam Deck issues is, man, this really feels like a game where the devs were like, you know what was the hottest shit? Western AAA games in the year 2007.
Hell yeah.
This does not feel like a game that is a PlayStation 5 exclusive. It feels like something that was released to showcase the shiny new Xbox 360 in 2008. Maybe this does not make any sense, but it just has that vibe. And
I get you.
I think based on what I've seen, I feel like it's more like late generation Xbox 360 than early Xbox 360. Those launch games were kind of rough. I don't think Forspoken is that level.
Yeah, so like
Forspoken has very big cameo energy, is all I'm saying.
So nice. So like I put more time in the game. I finally got fire magic like fucking 10 to 11 hours. Okay, like cool. But like I think the game is once my friend like reminded me, it's like, hey, there's like a slider to like make like the banter between Frey and Cuff like less often. I'm like, where the fuck is that? I looked at the options, and there's like 5 settings for it, and there's like one is like the lowest setting is like minimal. I'm like, I like that one. So like they basically shut the fuck up like when you're exploring the world.
It's in the accessibility settings. Accessibility, cuff frequency, low, default, high, minimal.
Yeah, or 4 or 5 settings. Yeah, it sounds like minimal, and like this shit's awesome because they really shut the fuck up by that. And like once like you kind of like you're just exploring the open world. They're not really speaking really that often anymore. And like I think there are cool ideas behind this game if like they just made the world like more visually appealing. Like there are ways to like make a post-apocalyptic world like visually appealing. Like look at Fallout, you know? Like, and like this game just feels so barren and devoid of, like, obviously by like design, but also just like the opening like starter areas, like it's like very rocky, very barren, just like not a lot, like a lot of ruins, not a lot of like interesting things to like catch your eye. It's not like for more easy recent examples like Elden Ring or Breath of the Wild, like there are like barren environments in those games, but they find ways to like have interesting things to look at while you're in those barren environments.
Yeah, so I was watching two people playing this kind of back side by side in Discord. They're at two different points in the game, but like one of their screens was basically just a bunch of brown, and one of them was like a reddish brown. And I understand, like, okay, these are like wastelands, but it's still just on its face, just like this isn't very.
We'll say playing devil's advocate here. So the first area is a barren desert. Then when you go towards the first major boss fight of the game, which, like Josh said, is further into the game than it feels like it should be, you get like the reddish brown that Adam said. And when you go to the second major region, which is like Avolet, you do get a little bit more vegetation. Kind of feels like, I haven't played Horizon Forbidden West, but I've played Horizon Zero Dawn when it came out on PC, and the desert area in that game, like the vegetation in that area is how much vegetation there is in like the second major region of Forspoken. So it is a little bit more visually interesting, but only slight.
Can I just say, as someone that's played like the first Horizon, I think visually the desert in that game is way better, like way more interesting than any of the regions I've seen in Forspoken so far.
Oh, I think Horizon has. I remember we were poo-pooing Horizon for some of the same like Western AAA trappings, but its art direction, like when you play Forspoken, I'm like, it makes you kind of appreciate that art direction more of like Horizon. Like, wow, this
actually. Speaking of Horizon directly, I actually think I like the deserty areas in that game more than like the jungly areas, because the deserty areas, we talked about this before. There's a little bit less noise.
Yeah, I can see that.
The jungle areas in those games just have so much, and it's a little bit hard to like.
When you say noise, you mean like visual noise?
Visual noise, yeah. The desert areas in Horizon, I think, might be like the best looking areas, really.
And it's got a very clear art direction, where in this game, it just feels like a bunch of models of ruins and buildings just kind of stapled together, procedurally arranged.
But even if you're like block out that aspect, right? You're like, okay, fine, I get it. Post-apocalyptic world, everything's fucked. There's like zombies everywhere. Okay, whatever. Is there like anything cool to do? No. Sure, it's an open world, but like, are there any activities that are like worth like doing for the reward? So you like look at the map, and then you're like, okay, there's this like village area here that I can clear out enemies here, and I can get a stat increase. That's cool. I can go over here and do the like very similar thing for experience, and I guess that's okay, great. And I can do another thing here for like a journal, or I can go to this like guild tower to get a journal entry for, I guess, if I care about the lore of this game, which so far everything I've like skimmed, I don't care about the lore.
I don't want to be too mean about this game, but the thing that gets me is that you see like 5 different types of objectives on your map, and every area is the same 5 types of objectives.
The only cool thing I've like done so far in this game, like that, like I'd like maybe go, okay, this is sort of interesting, is like the time trials of like, it's basically just go to this like wisdom monument, and then it says like, okay, there's like your actual, you're being tested, rated, ranked on like how fast you can clear out these enemies. You know, go at it. Like, okay, and then like there's like, it's sort of like it's kind of like a kind of like an arcade system scoring of like, hey, if you beat up these enemies, like they have a certain amount of points. If you can beat them up consecutively without getting hit, they'll have like bigger bonuses on the points. And like, okay, there's like at least something to this that like that, like there's like a strong incentive of like, okay, clearing out these enemies as fast and efficiently as possible, and you get rewarded for it. Of course, the actual rewards themselves of like what you get on this is like more mana or like or maybe some crafting material. It's like, okay, great, whatever. And then like only other like semi worthwhile ones I'll put it is like the labyrinth dungeons, which is just barely can be called a dungeon, because it's basically you go into this like well that transports you to this dungeon, and these dungeons are basically like wide, like you're like in ruins, but they're very linear big linear ruins that like you're going from room to room.
They're like square chambers connected by
Yes.
straight hallways.
Yeah, and then like you could then like a chamber will have an enemy, like these enemies. You clear out these enemies, and then sometimes you can go open the door that progresses you further into a dungeon, or you can open like an optional door that give you like has a treasure chest at the end of it, or like some more skill points that you can obtain, and then you go back the other way towards the main objective, and then you go into a boss fight that plays out like any other boss fight, which is circling around it, casting off your magic, and then hitting the dodge if they do anything, and so forth. Like at least it does. Of course, it does add more flavor to the combat once you get to the fire magic, which is pretty cool because I saved a shit ton of skill points once I got fire magic, and you can unlock like a bunch of its like support skills and like alternate types and so forth. And like a lot of those like support skills for fire is like actually really fun to mess with. Like there's one that like you can pull into them, but there's also like a shot type with the magic, because normally you have a fire sword, but you can make it so you can turn it into punches instead, which is cool.
Yeah, I will say I want to piggyback off that. I said on the last podcast, maybe they should have started you with fire magic, because even though I like the kind of the flavor and the theme of like the earth magic that Frey starts with, like it's about endurance. A lot of the support magic you get about is poisoning or healing, like with the tendrils, with the seeds. But it's just not as like visually interesting. Where like in fire magic, the first one you get is like where you rocket towards the enemy, or it's just. I like the idea of having like the earth magic theming in the game and represented well. It's interesting that that's what you start with. And to try to be a little bit more positive on the game, I do like when you get the earth and the fire magic, I think they complement each other pretty well. One's more suited for like close combat, one's more suited for distance combat, one's more straight damage, one's more attrition. But then beyond that, I've just recently got the ice magic, which is the third magic you get, and it's hard to distinguish it. It's just like fire magic with a different flavor. It's a lot of well, I guess it's more projectiles, so I guess it's more like the earth magic in that way. But the one thing I do like about the fire magic that I wish you got sooner, and it's one thing that I almost would recommend to anyone who hasn't played this game yet, who wants to, and I was talking to Adam before this podcast, when you get the fire magic, one of the things you get is the traversal ability to use like the hook shot. And you can finally like, all these different like crags that you see on the map, that finally you can like hook shot to them to gain a lot of elevation at once. And it actually feels pretty good to do the, what do they call it? The shimmy into like the hook shot and gain a lot of elevation at once. But it's like, I don't want to sound like needy, where it's like, why didn't they give me this in hour 3? But it's almost like, if you're planning to play this game, you will have a much better time if I just say, hey, just beeline to the fire magic. It's more visually interesting. You'll get much better traversal with the hook shot. Just don't get sidetracked until that point. And that point's like 10 hours into the game. So it's almost just get to that point and then the game improves. I do think improves markedly. I don't know if it's great, but it feels a lot better once you get the fire magic.
Yeah, it feels better to play. It feels less of a tech demo and starts being more of a game after that.
Yeah,
I'd say. I do wish you could it was more seamless though, switching between the elements. But I see how the earth magic and the fire magic is. Like I kind of wish there's sort of skill combos or skill chains that you could form. Like let's say you close in with the fire sword, and after the first stab of the fire sword, I wish you could skill chain into the shotgun blast of the earth, because that'd be a really cool way to close in distance and get the most out of that skill instead of manually walking up to them and then firing it off. There's that element of it that I wish was a little bit more dynamic, and the way that you can weave your spells together instead of be confined and and then having to switch over to the other one with the D-pad and then okay, I'm on earth magic now. Instead of I wish there was a way to interweave them a bit more intimately.
And there's a default when you're changing, because you can have one spell on your right trigger and then your support spell on your left trigger. There's been a lot of times where by default it just kind of gives you bullet time if you're changing skills, but I believe there's an option to make it just pause just completely. And I almost think that you kind of need that, because otherwise it's all right, I want to change my support skill, but you're just, as you're changing it, you just get hit, and you might just say, well, just get good and time it right. But
I've actually turned on the option where it'll automatically change your support skill to another one that's not on cooldown.
I didn't see about the auto option.
Yeah, it's like an accessibility, I think. It's actually a really neat feature.
Because I know they have the slow or full pause or no change at all. And that might be a good challenge for it's like, all right, it doesn't pause or slow down at all if you're changing your skills. You just got to do it on the fly. So I guess it's good that we have options for that.
Are you going to make combo videos on the YouTube for Forspoken?
No. But to the game's credit, I do think that there's a lot of headroom and opportunity for that. And it'd be interesting to watch some of that.
It's conceptually like that's the thing with the game. There's like conceptually interesting ideas. It's just the way that they're kind of like mashed together. It's like there's like a lot of things wrong with the way that it's kind of like put together. Like the building blocks for making it an interesting game are there. Like they crafted the interesting building blocks, but like when you're finally like doing the act of constructing it, is like what came out of that construction like probably didn't fit as well as it needed to. Like it's like kind of putting like a square piece into like a circle tube almost, or circle piece.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm enjoying the moment to moment gameplay more than I'm enjoying like the trappings of the game or the themings of the game or the story of the game. But like combat is fun, but also like I guess this kind of exemplifies how I feel about it. It's like when you kill an enemy or when you defeat an enemy that you haven't encountered before, it gives you a little notifications that says like such and such added to your log or whatever, so you can see the model or whatever. And like, oh, I swear I'd already defeated that, but I guess not because this thing looks slightly different. But all the enemies just kind of like look like, oh, it's either a humanoid zombie or like a four-legged lion-y, tiger-y thing. And I guess that's to the game's credit. Like each of the Tantas, the game story bosses, has like general, like for Silas, it's like the winged harpy type things, and for the second Tanta, who I actually forget her name, the ice one, the older lady, Rav, is the one that is like the arbiters with like the scales. So I guess the enemy variety is okay, but I just wish it was more visually distinct, where when you're going to one region of the map to the other, even if they did something really, really kind of banal, like just by color coding the enemies a little bit more deliberately, I think would have been more interesting. It's to say like, oh, these are minions of the fire Tanta or the ice Tanta. Maybe that would have made it a little bit more interesting, but right now it just looks like they blend in with the background, and it's almost hard to like even notice that what you're fighting is not exactly the same as what you fought before.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder. I wonder what Luminous Productions is going to do from here on. Here's what I want. Here's actually what I want. I want a webcam of everyone's reactions when they announce Forspoken 2 out of nowhere.
Okay, that's my reaction. It'll be like, I'm not a fan. Okay, unfazed, uncaring. Okay.
I would probably laugh and be like, all right, sick. That'd probably be my reaction.
I will say part of the story that I initially thought was kind of silly, but maybe it's trying to do something with it, is that when you fight the first Tanta, Silas, she's like a major character, and the game does a decent job at building up like why you have animosity towards her and like Frey's personal involvement. But then after that point, the game goes, the pace picks up significantly. It feels a little bit like Final Fantasy 15 after visiting Altissa, but not nearly as abrupt or bad. But one thing that the game is doing, and I can't spoil this because I don't know how it ends, is basically so many of the other characters in the game, including Cuff, are really pushing Frey to say, hey, you got to kill the Tantas. You got to kill the Tantas. And Frey is actually, and I think to her credit, I don't want to do that. I did the one thing as a favor to the city, but these aren't my people. Like,
yeah, you just want to go back home. That's like the priority number one.
And I actually kind of appreciated that. Like, the isekai flavor, I don't know if it's quite my style. Way where like when she gets the fire magic, she says like, I think we leveled up. Things like that.
I fucking died at that. Fuck. I was like, dude, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
But
you didn't have to say that.
But to her credit, I did like that way she's just like, I'm not your savior. You know, I have a singular goal that doesn't involve you people. Sure, I'm a compassionate person, or I can flex into that. So I'm going to do this thing for you, and then you defeat the first boss, and then basically the other Tantas retaliate, and then there's like this moment where they're like, "You caused this," but she's like, "I was only just trying to do good." And is it the most interesting or exciting or novel story beats in the world? No, but I did appreciate how Frey wasn't like a sorry sap for it. She was just like, hey, I just did this thing for you and I was trying my best. Okay, this isn't my fault. Like, and I did appreciate that. but I don't know how they're going to land that as you get to the end and the history of who her parents are and why she was brought here in the first place. And maybe this is me having played too many games of this sort, but I'm pretty sure Cuff is manipulating her to like do his bidding. Like he's like, I don't trust him. And like, it's one of those things where it's like, if they do that, I'm like, okay, that's very trite. How could you not be more interesting? And if they don't do that, I'm like, well, then why did you like telegraph it as if you were going to do that? So I don't
do you believe in the Forspoken writers?
Do I believe? No. No. What precedent do we have? We have the sequestering of Final Fantasy 15 story and like DLC and spin-off novels.
I don't know who wrote Forspoken, so I have no idea what the
trying to think what else we should. I remember I was
George R.R. Martin. There we go.
The I don't remember if he's the composer for Forspoken or if he just was contracted to do a few tracks, but is it Bear McCreary who did like the Outlander series and did a few other like HBO or shows or Amazon shows? I forget what, but he was credited on the soundtrack for this. And a little bit, some of it's kind of generic, but I do appreciate just kind of like the vocal themes as you're running through the desert and things like that. I don't know if this is the best thing on the world, but it's something that is distinctly Forspoken. It doesn't sound like, oh, they just borrowed this from Final Fantasy 15. Some of the other things it sounds like when Frey's using the fire sword, it's like, yep, that looks like Noctis. But
you know what I think of when we were talking about this, and you're talking about the OST of this game. I think about how Square Enix handled the Dio Field Chronicle, because they got the composers of Game of Thrones, and like the total OST track list for Dio Field Chronicle was like 7 to 8 tracks, I think. Mm-hmm. What was it, Adam? It was like that, right?
I mean, probably more like 12, but
okay.
That's not a big soundtrack, is it?
Well, it's like, all right. Did it really need more soundtrack though? Is the problem? You know, was it really a problem?
No,
or were they just being efficient?
I don't know,
just like the whole game.
I feel like at least like most video games I played, the minimal at least it'll be like 30 tracks at least. That's what I'm used to as the norm.
Dude, no. I think because we all play mostly RPGs. That's why RPGs usually demand that many tracks. But like,
okay, even Street Fighter has more songs than that. Come on, the OG Street Fighter.
Oh, you were talking about Street Fighter 1. There's no fucking way it has more songs.
There has to be. I mean, there has to be more 8 characters in that game.
Oh, man. All right. I'm not going to go verify it. I'm just going to be like, all right.
But yeah, I'm still making my way through Forspoken. I think I'm in like chapter 9 of 12. If I've heard, like I said last time, that you can kind of like beeline the game in not too long. So I might just do that to see how it ends and then see if I'm interested in just poking around the world and doing some of those challenges. But like you suggested, Josh, it is a bit like, here's a ruined city, defeat all the enemies here for an EXP boost. Oh, this one's not a city, you get sent underground to a dungeon, defeat all the enemies here for a mana boost. Oh, here's one's it's the same sort of thing, but it's a time trial. And it's just like putting the combat in different contexts, and then you're rewarded kind of the same way. Like I said last week, most of the items that you get from treasure chests or even from defeating enemies are crafting components. It's either crafting components or mana for unlocking spells. Oh, that reminds me of one other thing. I wish that this one tweak I think would make the game just a lot more interesting and a lot less start-stop is that as you level up or as you complete challenges or as you just find them in the world map, you unlock mana, and mana is not like MP points. They're points that you spend on unlocking new spells in this game, because your MP is basically just like your stamina here. But in order to upgrade your spells, you have to go to like a library, and then you can select, at least at where I'm at in the game, I don't know if this changes, you can select 3 spells. Like, here is my burst shot from my Frey Earth magic. And you select a spell and you're like, I want to be able to have the opportunity to upgrade this spell. And it's basically, for one of the burst shots, it's hit enemies from behind. But you can only do 3 at a time. So
it's stupid as shit.
It's like, we saw this in one of the gameplay trailers. They revealed like 3 in a row right before the release of the game. And I think conceptually, as a progression, that's absolutely fine. Where it's like, all right, the more you use burst shot, if you do it in a specific way, whether it's hitting multiple enemies with the same shot or hitting from behind or whatever, or knocking enemies down, do that enough times and you can upgrade the spell. And then some of which are even like the traversal spells, like the shimmy spell. I believe if you shimmy like 50 times, you end up unlocking the ability to gain stamina as you shimmy. So this stuff is actually conceptually fine and good. And there's a little bit of that completionist kind of like checking box exercise that actually ends up feeling pretty decent. But it limits you to 3. You can only have 3 things progressing at a time. And whenever you complete one, you got to go back to a library or a save point or whatever they call those little chapels that you rest at to unlock 3 more. I just feel like...
Let me make sure I'm understanding this properly. So in order to upgrade Shimmy, you have to do the Shimmy so many times.
Okay,
But you have this. You have to mark it in some journal that like.
Okay, I'll paint you a picture. Adam. So there are these things out in the world. They usually find them at like rest spots, like at like these safe havens, like these little houses that you can go into. They usually have like a crafting table, a bed, and like these little like wardrobes almost. And like you approach like these wardrobes, and then it'll take you to like a menu where it shows like your spells, and then from this menu you can select only up to 3 of these challenges. And it's like I want to choose the challenge for leaping, I want to choose the challenge for burst shot level 1, and I want to choose the challenge for my tendrils spell. Now, let's say the tendril spell. This spell, whenever I hit things with tendrils, it'll give me it'll absorb the health of enemies that it hits. And then the challenge is absorb 750 health from enemies. So you use it. So conceptually, you use it a bunch of times while you have this challenge equipped to make progress in that. And once you have reached that 750, you can go back to your magic spell menu and upgrade it for free because like you already completed the challenge. And then that just makes it so it makes it better.
If I absorb 750 health with tendrils, but I never like set it as my challenge, and it doesn't count.
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you choose to drop that challenge at any time for another challenge, it'll reset your progress. So you have to stick with that challenge.
I thought it said it doesn't reset your progress, but to me, that's whether it does or doesn't. The fact that you're limited to 3 is just silly because some of them are like. You end up playing the menu of the game. Like some of them are like crafting spells. Like there's one where it's like you unlock this spell, at least on phrase. Maybe this is only limited to phrase magic, where on one of phrase magic trees. And when I say phrase magic, that's the earth magic you start with versus Silas's magic or whatever's magic. It's like this magic will allow you to tier up your crafting components from like clusters to blooms. Like that's a spell. And then the challenge for that, you go to the wardrobe, like Josh said, and it's like do this 15 times. So you go to the wardrobe to unlock this challenge. You put it into one of your 3 slots because you can only have 3 active at a time. Then you go to the crafting bench to tier up your thing 15 times. And it's like, congrats, you did the challenge. Now you can upgrade this ability. Or like the shimmy, or it's like you say, okay, this one, the shimmy one is very basic. That's the one where instead of saying absorb so much health or knock enemies down, it's literally just shimmy 50 times. I think the game would just be so much better where it's like, all right, here's your magic tree. You use your mana to unlock spells. You can unlock the spells in the order that you think is most interesting, whether you like the burst shot or you want the movement skills first or you want the fire skills first. And then for each spell, you use it in a certain way or with a certain time or certain, challenge to it, then you can tier it up the more you use it. But they put that all behind this only 3 at a time, and you have to go to the specific location to do it. It just feels like a couple extra hurdles that really slow down the pace of the game and don't make progression fun. Because if you clear a challenge, let's say I have 3 challenges that are active and you clear one, then it's like, all right, I cleared one, better stop what I'm doing and go back to a wardrobe to get another one slotted so that I can.
Because else you're just wasting it.
Yeah, but what the real shit is never fucking worth it. Just go hit it up whenever you can. Don't be optimal about it. Don't just the game isn't worth that,
And another way that I'm only playing on the normal difficulty, so I'm sure if you're playing on the hardest difficulty, this isn't true, but I haven't spent a lot of time on like tiering up your cloaks or necklaces or nails because you get a fair number of them and you spend resources to kind of incrementally tier them up and make them stronger. But it just feels like in the percentage points, it feels very marginal. I never feel like, oh yeah, sweet, I got a new cloak. Time to really equip this and see what it can do, because sometimes it'll just give you like a tiny little bonus, like this cloak will heal you when you crit, or this cloak
the secret is it's like no stats really matter except like getting the more stamina pips, and if you're willing to go through the mind numbing process of doing those open world activities of like leveling up your magic or like get stat increases on your magic, because like the numbers will eventually like you do start seeing bigger numbers. It's just like, how much are you willing to tolerate? Because like in the end, you're still like the hard difficulty is like it's just like they have more health, and like theoretically, if you're playing somewhat well, you're never gonna get hit anyway. You know, so that's the real secret to it.
Just don't get hit forehead.
I mean, it's very easy not to get hit in the game if you're managing your stamina well and your dodge as well.
It's unfortunately very conducive to button mashing. Even if you don't have good timing, if you just keep hitting B at a regular cadence, you will avoid most damage.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So you want to do the review, Brian? You sound like you want to do the review.
I think I have a few games that I'm kind of might be not on the hook for, but I don't know if Colin's going to do the Harvestella review. I might do that. And then I might throw up something for Chained Echoes, which I played in early January. But I don't know, maybe if I have like a long weekend, I'll just write up a bunch of reviews and just slap them.
Dang, dude. Barkley reviews.
Ryan,
you want my Forspoken review?
Well, here is my review in a couple sentences on the podcast. So here's the preview review, if I'm going to write it, which I'm not committing to.
I'm assigned to write it.
All right. So the open world, the traversal is good, not great. Combat is dull until you get the fire magic, and then it ends up being significantly better. I don't know if it's stellar, but beeline to fire magic, and then once you get that, it just becomes inherently a ton more interesting. I don't care for the story beats, but I will admit that I do just like Frey's disposition as a character. Even though I know isekai trappings isn't for everyone, I do think that Frey kind of behaves realistically without being too melodramatic. Overall, I'm enjoying her character and those little moments more than the overarching narrative, which I could take or leave. I wish the open world was more interesting in terms of things to do. We kind of talked about how it feels very samey.
Okay, perfect. We'll get an app to transcribe what you just said, and then Adam can go edit on Google Docs.
There you go. Yeah, just ADR or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
What I just said.
It's done.
Yeah. You should just do that AI. Just have it write it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just put in a prompt like review Forspoken saying has good combat, bad trappings, and okay story or whatever, and then
perfect. There you go.
Make it 1,300 words. Okay.
Only 1,300.
I know.
Damn.
Oh. Yeah.
Josh is like, that's my intro paragraph.
Yeah, you know what?
Game good, bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
All right, need to go start looking into this AI thing.
All right, and the only other game that we could potentially slot in here, but I don't know if we have a ton of bandwidth to talk about it, is I did finish Fire Emblem Engage last week before I got into Forspoken, but we've already talked about that on several occasions on the podcast, and I know a few people haven't quite finished it yet, so I don't know if I want to go
give me a 2-sentence your final thoughts.
Okay, here, and it's actually quite positive. So Fire Emblem Engage, as we've talked about in previous episodes of the podcast, and just kind of like the zeitgeist in general, seems to be, if you boil it down with a obnoxiously large brush, is that gameplay good, story bad, if you want to make it super binary. One thing I will say about Fire Emblem Engage that did surprise me is that most games in their last third kind of get off the rails, whether it's the scope of their story gets too big, the gameplay mechanics kind of like break down. Usually the final third of the game is the weakest aspect, especially for like Tales games. I don't know why I'm taking pot shots at Tales games.
Yeah, I was like, dang. All right.
But Fire Emblem Engage, I will say, its last third is probably its best third. There's a section in the middle of the Fire Emblem Engage where you're basically doing the world tour. You're going through all the cities, you're being introduced to all the nobles and all the characters, you're gathering rings, and it's very rote, kind of boring, honestly, not interesting. Once Engage gets that out of the way and is actually able to just dive into like who the antagonists are, like the team of villains, or whatever you call it, and just get away from introducing the world in this very mechanical, awkward fashion, does it become great? I still would say no, but it becomes a lot more interesting. It feels like it gets all the requisite like filler out of the way. Like, oh, okay, you've seen all the nobles, you've seen all the cities. Now we can actually do the interesting stuff. It's just that by then you're in chapter like 21 of 26 and the game's almost over. I thought it was interesting that in some of the very last, I'm going to say this as spoiler free as possible. This is just mechanics of the last couple chapters. In the last couple story chapters of the game, Engage finally introduces you to like a level that has a turn limit, which I was surprised, like, oh, it's just now telling me about chapters that have turn limits. And then there's this one chapter that has this really interesting setup that has like this lane mechanic where you have your units divided amongst 3 lanes, and each lane will have a specific mechanic that you have to either like avoid or tear down as you go through it. It's not just an open map that you can death ball or turtle. And I'm like, man, I wish it had some of this stuff earlier. Like by the time it introduces some of this stuff, I only have like 3 chapters left of story. And then I will say, as generically as possible, I really do like just mechanically how the final chapter is set up. It was a challenge. It was dynamic. And kind of, I was playing on hard mode, not maddening, but I had to use quite a few of the turn back mechanic. Yeah, so as a classic Fire Emblem, I felt like, dying inside every time I did that. But I don't know. The last third of the game left me on a more positive note than I was feeling at like the 15-hour mark. So it does.
I partially agree and partially disagree.
Okay.
In terms of mechanics and map design, I agree that basically very, very light spoilers. The boss basically says like, come get me. And before you get him, you have to go like 3 different guardians. And that to me just kind of felt like padding in terms of just like story. Like, oh, I got to go left, right, and up to like basically get 3 guffins, and then I can take on the boss.
It's like Breath of the Wild, but you don't need them.
But those 3 levels are strong levels, just like from a game standpoint. So that's where I agree and disagree. Like in terms of story, I kind of just feel like it almost just like this side thing, kind of throwaway. But in terms of game, it's really good. But yeah, the level with the 3 lanes, I definitely think is one of the stronger ones in the game for sure.
Yeah, and maybe we'll have an opportunity to talk more detail later on Fire Emblem and actually go into spoilers, but just 3 houses I thought near the end. I still think 3 houses is a better, more complete product. I still will say that by the end of the game, I was just skipping all support conversations. And you might listen to that and be like, well, then how can you have an opinion on them? But every single time I try to listen to them, I would just like zone out. Like I just did not find them interesting or compelling. Like I found the gameplay a lot more compelling than any of the characters or any of the stories. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to skip this so that I can do another battle. And if that's not your thing, if you came into Fire Emblem looking more for the character interactions and story. So, and that's kind of, we've had a few opportunities to talk about Fire Emblem Engage. And basically I'm saying my opinion didn't change on that. But last third of the game really had a lot of time just simply playing through it. It'll probably appear on my top 10 list this year, but not as high as I would like. As, Fire Emblem used to be one of my favorite series. And this game I thought was just merely good. Not great, not quite the complete package. It has high highs, but kind of low lows. And that's my summary. Spoiler light as possible on
another thing to transcribe onto a Google Docs or an AI to finish.
Yeah, well, we'll put up the AI review and compare it next to Adam's and see if fewer people agree or
it'll be identical.
And then we learn Adam never existed.
Holy shit!
He was an AI this whole time.
I mean, you're supposedly his brother, so I mean, you would know best. I'm not gonna, Oh my god!
No, I'm just an AI that Brian created. I'm just an AI. I'm an AI account, an AI voice. Everything I write is just AI.
That's crazy. You're the most versatile AI I've ever met. That's awesome. I need another one of you.
Well, with that out of the way, we'll go into kind of the article shoutouts in the news section of this podcast. Like last week, the news section is pretty limited in scope. Not a lot of things have kicked up as we enter. I know it's already February. 2022 felt like it took forever. For me, 2023 is already flying by. So not a lot of new information on the news front here, but a few things that were announced from the NIS America event earlier in the week. But before we get to that, we do have a couple articles up on the site. Both of them are from James, and both of them are about Final Fantasy XIV. So Final Fantasy XIV is currently in the midst of its Chapter 6 patch series, and I'm going to hand it off to James before I mistake anything too egregiously. But I'll hand it off over to James, and I know Chad will chime in too as another active player of the game. James had written about both patch 6.3 and his impressions on that, as well as a little bit of drama that occurred in the game space regarding the new Ultimate Raid that was released in the last couple of weeks.
All right. So patch 6.3 came out last month, and then patch 6.31 released last week. And those patches added a bunch of content, specifically for 6.31, it added in the newest Ultimate Raid. And the first of the 2 articles I published was about how there was a bit of a controversy surrounding the world's first clear raid race for the current Ultimate Raid, the Omega Protocol. Basically, there's been off and on some controversies surrounding modding in 14 over the last couple of years. For a while there, it kind of fell to the wayside because there wasn't really as much raiding content during the tail end of Shadowbringers. But I wasn't actively playing the game at this time, but apparently when the one Shadowbringers Ultimate Raid came out, which Ultimate Raids are the highest end raiding activity in Final Fantasy XIV. There's specifically raids that you can only even attempt if you have cleared the Savage Raid tier, which Savage Raids is the regular high-end raiding activity that most raiders actively engage with. And then Ultimate Raids are, okay, so you get gear from doing the Savage Raids and from doing your weeklies to get tomestones that you can swap for gear. And then it's okay, you're best in slot. What's the point of that? The Ultimate Raids kind of that carrot at the end of the stick where it's you have all the gear. Now it's time to challenge yourself and try and get clear these fights, where the whole point of clearing the fight is here's a shiny weapon that isn't really better than what you currently have, but it's a status symbol and you also get a title. And also the fights themselves are mechanically interesting. So back in Shadowbringers, there was a controversy where the team that cleared the Epic of Alexander, or T, at the time used a mod to auto-place waymarks on the stage whenever a phase change happened. That way there were specific waymarks on the stage corresponding to the mechanics going on at any given time. That was something you could technically do in the middle of fights at that time. You could just swap them even when you had already pulled the enemy. So even though people called them out for using mods, it wasn't something that was necessarily an advantage. You could have had someone place the markers, save the markers themselves and just just bring up the waymark thing and just click that button every time. But
so it's kind of an advantage, but it's more of a convenience.
It's more of a convenience, but it would definitely make some fight a lot easier than it would be.
Then even then, I don't think that was as big of a deal because, again, you could... no. As a result of that, there were some changes. You could save waymarkers after that, but you could only place them before you pulled the boss, so you couldn't change them in the middle of a fight. More recently, with DSR or Dragon Song's Reprise, there was another small controversy over the ClearVid video that the team that won that race, Neverland, put out. The Red Mage that uploaded it used a mod to better give them a visual indicator when they could slide cast, among one or two other things that were minor, very minor, but reignited people's complaints about modding in 14. But both of those, the T stuff and the DSR stuff, Yoshi P and the dev team are very lenient on this. They said pretty much, we do not allow mods, but we also don't have any way of telling if you're using a mod unless you upload something that outright shows, you're obviously using a mod. And at that time, they said, we do not want to have anti-cheat and stuff like that. Things were a little different this time because, first off, the team that originally, quote unquote, won the world race for the current Ultimate Raid, the Omega Protocol, was a Japanese team, which obviously for a Japanese developer Creative Business Unit 3, there is a bit of a difference there, but the severity of the mods they used was well and above what the 2 previous Ultimate Raids did. Setting down waymarkers, whatever, it's technically something you could do within the confines of the game, even if it is something that is giving you a bit more convenience than if you were doing it manually. The stuff with the slide cast thing. Realistically, slide casting is not all that difficult. Just having a visual indicator to say, hey, you can move now, not all that helpful. It's a little bit helpful, but not all that much. The other thing they had was buff debuff timers, which the dev team themselves said, we should have this in the game. Those were added for recent patch. I think it was actually added with 6.3, where you can actually see the timers for buffs and debuffs for the entire party. Basically, that was a mod at that time. but the dev team was like, yeah, no, this should be in the game anyways.
I think that's one of the best things they added, because you know who fucked up by looking at the buff timers. It's like, yeah, that guy had that, but instead back then you couldn't see the buff timers, so you don't know who fucked it up when you did mechanics.
But yeah, so the most recent raid, what happened is that the team that quote unquote won, though officially they haven't won now because they got it revoked, which is massive, because that's something the dev team hasn't been hands-on about this stuff before to this degree, and it's like massive shift in policy. They use Zoom hacks, which basically means that when you're like blind progging an ultimate fight, if you're blind progging a raid where people do not know all the mechanics yet, the number one thing you can do to give yourself an advantage is to give yourself more information. And no matter how you do that, that is a massive change, like a massive adjustment that if it's done with like outside the confinements of the game at a stock setting is like, that's like, there's cheating. And then there's that, because like, if you can see like,
basically they increase their field of view so that they could see more going on at once than they typically would.
Yes. And it's especially important for world races because generally all of the groups that are going for a world first, they're going to have the 8 people that are raiding, but they're also going to have people that aren't raiding, but their whole job is, okay, multiple people are going to be recording their footage and maybe sharing it to Discord. And your job as the 9th or 10th person is to view that perspective. And instead of like, since you're not worrying about rotation, since you're not worrying about DPS, you're just looking at the mechanics. That way, when something goes wrong, like when you're worried about like your positioning and you're worried about your DPS, you're just going to miss stuff. So, but if somebody's just watching it and doesn't have to worry about any of the actual mechanical stuff, but it's just looking for what went wrong, that's a massive, like, that's their job. It's like, okay, I think this is the order in which these things went off. And that helps you figure out, okay, here's maybe how the mechanic works. And when you're trying to clear a fight as fast as possible, when there's no information, having someone using zoom hacks to zoom out further than the game normally allows doesn't just help the person using the zoom hack, but it helps the entire team gather information. And that's why it was such a big like shitstorm over this, because even if you don't play 14, like once you lay it out like that, it makes perfect sense why like previous hacks, it's like, okay, it's for not breaking the fight. It's for convenience. Like setting down waymarks doesn't matter if you didn't already know what those waymarks are for. Using buff debuff timers doesn't matter when you needed to know what those buffs debuffs are for. Using zoom hacks matters because that lets you figure out things at a much quicker pace than someone that's not using those tools.
So if you're not someone who does ultimate rating and you're just on the outside looking in, and even if you play Final Fantasy 14, like, why would someone be invested in saying so-and-so would world first clear, or legitimately or not?
I don't think most of the raiders really care about who gets world first or not, because the people that are doing the race, it's all for fun. It's all for fun because people genuinely like doing these raids. The thing that really gets a lot of people that do ultimate raids, though, and part of the reason why I wrote about this is that you see a lot of people that even like back when the T and DSR stuff happened, they were like, oh, all mods are bad, which yes, the dev team's saying this, but you also have to understand is that when you're at high end, when you're rating at a high end level, and I'm sure even Chow can attest to this to a certain degree, there is a certain number of mods and plugins that even if the dev team says, okay, we do not allow any of this, it's endemic. Everyone uses ACT. A lot of people use Cactbot. It's like, there's all these little things that add up over time where the dev team says one thing, but anyone that's not rating doesn't really understand how there's a reason why this instance of like this type of plugin blew up and there was such a big deal about it. It's not just because they were using plugins at all. It was because of what they specifically used. And there's like, even if the whole, like, even if on paper, it's like, okay, we can't allow any mods. We do not want you to use plugins, anything like that. The main thing is, and I think the reason why the dev team reacted so much more strongly this time, because keep in mind, like, there was like temporary suspensions for anyone that showcased those mods and plugins in previous Ultimates, but it was temporary, and they still kept all of the accolades for being world's first. They kept their weapon, they kept their title, all that stuff. This time it was different. The person was caught using the Zoom hacks, banned, but not just that. Every single person in that group got their title revoked for clearing the fight and had to relinquish their weapons. And I don't know if I'm explaining this right.
No, that makes sense to me. They didn't get anything that they would have earned from winning.
Yeah. They basically, the GM logged in, tell them they had to delete the weapon from their inventory. They just can't remove them automatically. It seems like they have some, limitations with the game that they can't do it straight off from their.
The reason why is because if you're on a certain job, you can't relinquish a weapon if it's the only weapon you have. So that's why they said you have to get it manually, because it's like, okay, if you already threw out your Savage weapon, you're going to have to get like another weapon to swap it out with or something like that, I think.
But this is a very extreme case where, I don't know, like, I think some of the players that did this clear, some of them even got death threats because they're like, how dare you to stay in our game? How dare you? And it got so bad that some of the people that did this clear, they actually deleted their account from the game.
Yeah.
They don't want to be harassed,
It's one of those things where there's been like rumblings for years about how the Japanese fan base for 14 is really like
toxic.
Yeah, toxic, especially when it comes to any sort of modding, even just like visual mods. And
they're like a witch hunt kind of group.
Yeah. So I think, like, I was not surprised to hear that some of the people that were in the raid group, unnamed, which were the ones that before they had their stuff revoked were considered the world first for the fight. I was not surprised to hear that some of them had deleted their characters, because for them, that situation, it might have been the best option for them. It's either get continually harassed for years or delete their character and maybe be let off the hook, because it's like, okay, well, they deleted their character. They know what they did is wrong. They've got the message, which terrible that that's what it had to come to.
I would never deal with those people, because those people are dicks. They would try to get you deleted just because you probably use a hack for chat bubbles. They are the worst kind of scums, I would think. These are like these guys are like the villains of, what is it, Les Miserables, where the guy is just complete lawful to the extreme, a complete scum.
Yeah, but anyways, the main reason I did that article is that you see so much stuff like going out this way and that way about, oh, well, the whole reason they got their stuff revoked was because they were using any plugins. That wasn't the case. Even if the dev team might be saying otherwise, it's very clear that the reason why this was different was the combination of it being a Japanese team and also the severity of the hacks they were using. Because I guarantee you, every single group that seriously tries to run Ultimates on content are going to be having people using mods. It's just inherent with how the scene is.
Yeah, like I actually don't blame Unnamed doing this thing. They got the mindset, it's like, if everyone's going to use plugins, why not we use plugins too? But now that this thing happens, I think Square Enix has to put this thing, we better get people banned from using this so that it doesn't become a standard. If it becomes a standard, then it'll turn into a WoW, and this is something that, none of the Final Fantasy players signed up for, so.
Yeah, and also there's the whole, elephant in the room where it's like, well, all of these fights need to be clearable on consoles, so it's like, if you make it so that, the high-end raid scene is like, okay, well, you better play on PC, that's, a massive problem for the dev team themselves. So
let's generalize that you were able to write up the feature specifically on the raid story that really boiled it down for those like me that haven't played Final Fantasy 14. But then you also put up a second feature for 6.3, which you titled something a little bit down. You titled it Endwalker's First Real Stumbling Block. So I know a lot of people really think very highly of Final Fantasy 14 and of Endwalker. based on the title of your article here for 6.3, you see, it seems like it's something you're not quite as high on, at least not in the most recent patch. So just go ahead and talk about like why you think 6.3 might be a little bit of a letdown if I'm interpreting the title correctly.
Yeah, so 6.3 is a fine patch. It's just like in comparison to 6.1, 6.2, it's a smaller patch, at least for now, until like 6.35. But the main reason why I said it's maybe Endwalker's first real stumbling block is because of a combination of some baffling design decisions. Like I was a huge fan of the adventure plate stuff and instant portrait stuff that was added with 6.1. But now that it's out of beta and now that like instant portraits are in basically every instance content, the way it works in practice, there was issues with it. Like when it was in beta and like the instant portraits were only part of, crystalline conflict and PvP, but because it was in beta, people assumed they would be fixed when it was brought out of beta. Long story short, basically your portraits are based off of your gear set, and whatever you set your portrait as, if you get even a single piece of new gear, even if the glamour that's applied on that gear is the same, so you visually look identical, the moment you add a different piece of gear to a gear set, it just resets it back to the default, 1,000-yard stare, and you have to go in and manually change it back to how he had it before.
It's very finicky.
It is so dumb. So dumb. And you can't even just have it be, okay, I want my instant portrait to just be what I have in my adventure plate, which is a separate thing. And like they might say, oh, well, we don't want people to see like an instant portrait for a healer job when the person's a tank, even though you have a big color coding on the instant portrait to let you know what role they are. It's just like, just do it. Just do it. It's way less finicky that way. I mean, for people that want to have an instant portrait for each of the gear sets, that's neat, I guess. But the way it works where it just constantly breaks when you get even a bit of new like gears.
Annoying as hell.
Yeah, it's bad. Yeah, but even more so than that, like 6.3, that's an annoyance. There's less content than 6.1 and 6.2 added, which is whatever, because they've also been updating like PvP over time. They've been updating Island Sanctuary over time. Whatever. The main problem with 6.3 is stability. There's a lot of bugs that just found their way into the game just out of nowhere on 6.3, and it's been very noticeable. And there's been stability issues. Like I remember the first week of 6.3, there was a lot of issues with the stability of the North American data centers. Primal just buckled under its own weight for an hour or so. And the only reason I didn't run into that is that I was doing a reclear for P8S on Ether with a few friends of mine. And then later it's like, wait a second, that's what happened with Primal while I was gone?
Oh no, I did the rating. It was god awful that day on the first time.
Yeah.
Everyone got random disconnected and they
yeah. Like during that, I was trying to do a reclear. When I was trying to do that reclear, the very first pull, half the group got a Pokeball, which is the disconnect symbol. And so we did that one pull, and then everyone was like, okay, nope, not today. Not today.
We did it for that. It will be like, as soon as you almost got the boss die, it's like somebody DC'd, or this guy lagged for 5 seconds and couldn't move, and then you fucking die. It's like, yep, not possible. It's like, I don't know how anyone can do high-end game content in this game if you don't have the best connection. I don't know how it's that even legitimate.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. Sorry to bring it back to the raid article, but that's the main thing I said in there too. It's like a lot of the time, some of these plugins that people are using are because of deficiencies with the game. Like 14 Alexander and No Clippy on their own, you could technically cheat with them, but because everyone uses ACT to parse their logs, and because FF Logs has a filter to make sure, okay, this is something that could be legitimately done stock, people aren't using 14 Alexander and No Clippy to do stuff like triple or quadruple weave for jobs that shouldn't be able to. You're just using it to make themselves have an even playing field to people that are hooked right up to the server, like in Tokyo or some shit. It's like there's so many like technical issues with 14 on the best of days, and then just 6.3 comes and it's like, what the hell happened?
Basically, based on the instant, what do you call it, instant plate?
Adventure plate? Are you talking about that?
No. The technical issues with like the stability with the connections, and then the other stuff that people have been running into with like actual like critical bugs with 14 jobs. Like Ninja still has an issue where one of their main buttons, Mudra, like has an inherent delay into it, which means that if you're a Ninja main and you have like muscle memory to quickly like dole out these spells that use hand signs that use Mudra, it's just not working right now. And they didn't fix that heading into the ultimate raid, which means that the people that are most likely going to be impacted by that as Ninja mains, they just had to suck it up. It's like, what?
So it's like a lack of polish that you'd been accustomed to seeing from Final Fantasy 14.
But it's not like if you think about it, it is pretty good content-wise. There is this content, like this patch has a ton of content added to it. But just like everything else is just like, I think something went wrong there. Too much focus on content and not much of the polish, maybe.
Well, I mean, there isn't as well. I mean, 6.1 had more content, like undeniably. Like this is a fairly standard, like X.3 patch. Just
I wasn't there in the Shadowbringers X3 patch. I was just there at the end, and I'm like, man, this game is so epic. You feel like. Okay.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not trying to be negative. It's just like when 6.1 and 6.2 were so strong and so solid, 6.3 coming out and like understandably having a bit less content because we're at the halfway point of the expansion. Things are slowing down. This is a catch-up patch to begin with. It's seeing all of these technical hurdles just pop up like seemingly out of nowhere is like, what the hell happened? Is all. So that's the main reason why it's been a bit of a stumbling block, because especially for people like me, especially for raiders, it's like been instantly noticeable. Because the worst thing is like when you wipe and it's not because of any one of your faults, but because of like a connection issue or like a bug with the game. It doesn't feel good.
Those are the ultimate feel bads. It'll be like every time you did everything right, but one person just couldn't move due to lag, and then you die. I kind of don't like that when it comes to doing like Savage and maybe Ultimate ratings. It's just everybody is responsible, but just because one person dies, it affects everybody else. It feels kind of wrong. And then you'll be toxic towards the person that caused the wipe. You'll be like, it's like, how dare you? Why did you die? It's
and that's why I record my ultimate session. So if like lag happens, I can just point to it and be like, it's not my fault. I had the proof.
Mm-hmm. But, well, thank you for illuminating us on the recent goings-ons for Final Fantasy 14, 6.3, both with specific to the raid scene and also just the polish of the most recent major update. So obviously, seems like mostly just in terms of expectations, where this game has been super successful for quite a while now. So it just seems disappointing that the lack of polish in the most recent patch for the game.
Yeah.
All right. With the two features that James wrote, discussed and out of the way, we'll go into the news section here. This is pretty limited in scope. Two major pieces of news here. Both came out of the NIS America event that we kind of teased at the end of the last week's podcast. One of these things we kind of expected and were hinted at we would likely see. This other thing, I think, was a bit of a surprise. So the thing that we expected to see is that Disgaea 7, which has been in the Japanese marketing scene for a while now with a bunch of character trailers and all that, now officially has an English name. Disgaea 7 Vows of the Virtueless. Vows of the Virtueless will be releasing in fall this year for PlayStation 4 and 5, Nintendo Switch, and PC. And then NIS America then released an announcement trailer for the release.
Adam, stupidly like big, to be honest, compared to how you remember how Disgaea 6 was handled last time.
I remember it had a lot of weird oddities with, is it coming to Sony? Is it only on Switch? Who's publishing this game? Is that what you're talking about?
Adam, they do. I mean, Adam, I know you remember how it was done. Do you want to recap?
Well, I mean, Disgaea 6 in Japan just released for PlayStation and Switch at the same time. Nothing weird about it.
Okay.
In the West, it was announced in a Nintendo Direct. And like Brian was saying, it was only announced for Switch. Now, here's the thing. When a game is usually like announced in a Nintendo Direct, like Harvestella, for instance, obviously the Nintendo Direct context is like, this is a Switch game. But usually you get the press release from the publisher, Square Enix in that case, and be like, okay, here are the platforms it's actually coming to. In that case, also PC. But for Disgaea 6, it's like, nope, this is Switch exclusive, which was weird considering it had a PS4 version in Japan. And it's just like, why? And we never got a clear answer. It's like, did Nintendo fund it? They didn't really publish it. Like, was it a marketing deal, like exclusivity deal?
So far, all I could tell that NIS America got out of that was that there was like postcards of some sort that were available as a My Nintendo reward, and that was all I could find. That was the only thing I could find.
But anyways, Disgaea 6 did eventually, like a year, some months later, come to PlayStation and PC. But, you know, had this weird, like, staggered release. Whereas for Disgaea 7, it's just coming to PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Switch, and PC. Presumably, looks like just all at once. No weird, like, exclusivity windows. So, like, that's definitely a plus.
Yep.
And far less confusing.
I mean, I think that, you know, the biggest thing that people will notice just from this game, like in like enhancements, like your units can get super big in this game, like off the board big, like gigantic kaiju size. The name of it threw me out because I thought it was going to be jumbofication, but it's jumbification.
Yeah, jumbification.
So that's, you know, apparently this game, like, there's a demo for this game that released in Japan, and like I guess a few people who tried it out already like were telling me it's like, yeah, it's already a way better improvement than Disgaea 6 just from the demo alone. So I never really touched Disgaea 6. I don't know in what ways this could be like, you know, they've still adapted their 3. They're not going back to 2D with Disgaea. They're still on the 3D path with it, and I think they're going to stick to it. But you know, apparently from people who played the demo, they seem to like it over Disgaea 6 already.
Mutual Minds is playing through the game, and he shared a screenshot where it's like there's apparently a chapter where like the goals is basically beating the shit out of scalpers. So awesome.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah, I would like to get back into the like a Disgaea game. Like if this is like a really good Disgaea entry, like and it's coming to PC, you know, I'd like to like get back into Disgaea. Sure, like I haven't really gotten into this Disgaea game since like 3. I think.
Is this the first time it's releasing on PC day and date?
I think so.
Yeah.
So all the other PC reports were late.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember all the other ones, it'd be kind of confusing because it'd be like Disgaea and Disgaea 2 and Disgaea 2 Complete, and then Disgaea 2 Complete's PC version, and like it was really staggered and almost hard to keep track.
Disgaea 2 actually never got a complete version, which, well, they don't call it Disgaea 2 Complete, which probably just proves your point. It's kind of confusing how they label these. So
the other major piece of news, or maybe not a major, but surprising piece of news that came out of the NIS America updates was that NIS America is going to be releasing Rhapsody, Marl Kingdom Chronicles in the West this summer for PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, and PC. So this is effectively Rhapsody 2 and 3, which are following up from the Prinny Presents re-release of Rhapsody, a musical adventure. Do I have that all slated out correctly, Adam?
Yep.
And the main difference here is that Rhapsody 2, Ballad of the Little Princess, and Rhapsody 3, Memory of the Marl Kingdom, these were previously Japanese only, so this is a new localization of 2-decade-old games.
Yep.
It's huge. Like these are like projects people never thought would ever see an official localization. Big win. You know,
NIS has like Makai Kingdom, I believe. It had like PSP content that was never translated before. So when they re-released that, it was like partially new.
Like La Pucelle Ragnarok as well.
Yeah, that one also. So they've sort of had like translating stuff that had never been translated before as terms of like new versions or updates or content. But it's been a while since they like, here's a re-release that's technically a re-release, but it's basically releasing for the very first time.
Yeah, they've done English. Yeah, they haven't done this for
that's these very cool. And it's interesting.
It's 2 full games into one. Yeah.
This is interesting that this was announced by NIS America, which is sort of similar to like the Prinny Presents packages, where those are like announced and released in the West first, and then they usually make their way over to Japan later, which is interesting to me in terms of like the Western branches kind of like, taking the charge on some of these re-releases. Yeah. And then they, obviously make their way kind of in reverse, backwards. Like I'm going to the Japanese Nipponichi software blog right now, and I'm pretty sure that like this Marl Kingdom Chronicle game has not been announced for Japan. It's just, I'm sure it'll come eventually, but that's just what I'm getting at, is that it's kind of handled by the Western branch first, then brought to Japan later, which is interesting.
I guess we should also note, like, because obviously Rhapsody is a series. Well, now we could call it a series, like in the West, right? Because they did, like, these were like, interestingly enough, like these were never really called Rhapsody in Japan. Like, like the original Rhapsody was like,
it was like Marl Kingdom.
Yeah, Marl Kingdom, The Adventure of the Puppet Princess, and then like the second was like Little Princess, like Mario Koku no Ningyo Hime, I think. And then like I think the third was like Tenchi no Present, Marl Kingdom Monogatari, something like that. But like obviously when people think about Rhapsody, like the original PS1 game, they're very fond of like the English localization of it, especially the English voice acting. It's because like Rhapsody is like a musical at heart. There's like a lot of musical notes, there's musical lines, musical like just segments in it, and people who don't know like these two sequels, that they're very much in that same line too. They're musicals at hearts. They have a lot of like but just burst into song in this game.
This will start singing like a Disney movie.
Yeah, So how NIS America is handling the localization of these is they will still have options for, you still have dual audio, English and Japanese for the voice acting, but like the actual songs themselves, when they start buzzing out of the tune, will be Japanese only for these re-releases. Technically new releases, obviously, in the West. How they're doing the subtitling and the audio is when they're singing in the game, you have a karaoke of the Japanese lyrics that they're showing in the subtitles, in parentheses, underneath the translated English line.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's like all in real time as well.
If only they added like button mashing like in Yakuza games.
But they showed a little bit of Rhapsody 2 on the live stream at the English audio, and it sounded really good. I think people will be like really happy.
I've actually seen some people disappointed that they're not dubbing the songs.
Yeah, it's really
that's
tough.
the thing with dubbing the songs. It's extremely hard and very it's hard to do and easy to do poorly.
Yes.
So like sort of like they just felt, I guess, for a release like this, probably just the effort and to get a good quality of that for a release like this, they probably just decided.
I think this is
we've seen other games do this too. Where it's just like the songs were just going to stick in Japanese.
Stellar Glow was
Stellar Glow did
that. Famous for that.
It's just probably like at least they're handling this like in the best, like the next best way possible, right? Because like the other way is like you have to like restructure the whole lyrics of the song to like fit like the English language, and like does that take away from like the original meaning, etc. It's so difficult. So I understand why they went this route, and I still think they're still very charming like games. I've never played them to completion. Like I've only very like touched these games like very very briefly when I was like messing with PS1 emulation way back when. I was like, oh, like many other people, I didn't know Rhapsody had sequels until like within the last 10 years.
I think the only thing I was worried about with these kind of re-releases, like Japanese audio quality, like they don't actually archive things too well. I just wonder if like audio quality still holds up.
This is kind of a tangent, but I remember when I was playing when Persona 4 came to PC and I checked out the Japanese voices. At least on that port, the Japanese voices in Persona 4 are like way lower quality, and I just mean like audio quality, than the English. It's very weird.
Yeah,
like I don't know if that's just how it was or what.
But man, I really want to play all the Rhapsody games now. There's like I still need to get around to the fucking NIS classics, but like,
too many games now. Did even Rhapsody 3 release before Disgaea 1? Obviously, the early ones did. I think so.
I
believe so.
It's just like all three of these games are like pre-Disgaea Nipponichi.
Like I think Rhapsody came out like at the end of 2000. So if Disgaea came out after 2000.
Let me look this up.
Yeah, I want to say Disgaea came out after.
Yeah, 2002 maybe. Is it for Disgaea? 2002 maybe.
Yeah,
so Rhapsody 3 came out in December 2000. The original Disgaea came out in 2003, so several years before.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Pre Disgaea NIS something else really. I mean, not to say like Disgaea is it as bad or anything. Like Disgaea is very good.
It's just like that's basically their flagship.
Yeah.
Like, but NIS existed before that flagship.
Yeah, they were one hell of a company. So but that's this is such a great surprise. Like this is in some ways this is like a really, really cool way to celebrate a 30th anniversary. I know a lot of people were like, we want Falcom announcements, we want this, we want that from like this NIS anniversary event. But they already made it clear it's going to be focused on NIS, like centered, focused announcement, like just for NIS, and like this coming out of nowhere is like there's something really, really cool about this, like, just for game preservation and just like just being able to like just access these in the West finally. That's like this is like there's like almost like low key, almost like Forsaken Densetsu 3 got unofficial localization finally, right?
Well, like for the last 20 years, you could not play these games unless you imported physical copies from Japan, whatever was left.
Yeah.
But now it's like for the next 20 years, hopefully these are still on digital storefronts at least. And now I know there's a can of worms there. Like how long are those going to stay up?
Yeah.
But at least it'll be still an improvement in terms of we'll have these games available to play decades down the line. You can play them in English. That's very cool. So.
Not just an improvement on that end, but also an improvement in, remember when Rhapsody DS came out and they completely axed any of the references to the later games from the localization?
Mm-hmm.
That was like, I think that was the first really major controversy that got a lot of people like being like, oh, hate NIS America's localizations.
It's definitely one of the early ones for sure. Yeah, that was
like good old SD or Heart, or as the Americans call her, STD.
Oh yeah,
man, I really
that is the worst name change ever. Because
it's pretty bad.
Her Japanese name was like SD Reinhardt or something like that. Why the hell?
I said it, SD or Heart. Yeah.
Why would you do such a stupid thing to have a stupid joke in your game? It was just the worst.
So I mean, moving on past that, it's just like this is great. I was very, very happy when they showed this. I'm like, holy shit.
There are so many classic NIS games that I want to get to, like Phantom Brave and Soul Nomad and Makai Kingdom and these, just like, man, there's too many games.
You could probably fill up like a good chunk of the year if you just only played NIS titles. And
the thing is they're all available on Steam now, or they will be. And that's just, can buy them, play them whenever I want. So
it's cool. So yeah, this is like, keep on doing these. This is great. This is great.
Yep, so the two Rhapsody games are going to be releasing at some point this summer on Switch, PS5, and PC. Disgaea 7 just recently released in Japan, but will be releasing officially in English this fall for the same consoles plus PS4.
I think one odd thing is that the Rhapsody Duo is not coming to PS4, it's just PS5.
Yeah. So yes.
Those games could run on PS4.
I don't know if
next gen is here. You don't get the NIS ports.
Let's think about this for a little. What do you think is like the thinking behind like with Nisa? Obviously this is a decision made in a meeting. Like, hey, we're gonna put this on PS5, not PS4. Why do you think that is?
The reason why is because that way they guarantee that it's actually going to be shown on store shelves, not just for like GameStop, but it's like you've seen folks like Annie Hawk say it on Era, where it's like the idea is from a retail sense.
Do these have like actual physical releases? I didn't actually check.
Yeah, well, at least at the NISA's store.
Yeah. Okay. And the idea is like, especially for a place like Best Buy, eventually they're going to phase out PS4 games. And even if you can play PS4 games on PS5, nobody's going to they're not going to showcase it. It's not going to be anywhere where people could really see. And that's the idea, is just like eventually, like even if they can run on PS4, give it another like year or two, the types of people that are most likely to buy NIS titles are probably all going to have made the jump to PS5 at that point. So the idea. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
And also, just the first Rhapsody game is not on PS5, so it's kind of
okay. I also didn't consider that either. That's funny. I mean, you can still run it either way, right? So run on PS5.
So the first Rhapsody game is what? The new release is just Switch and PC. So
wait. Oh yeah, you're right. That's because they didn't have the NIS Classic, but that had Rhapsody 1 on PlayStation.
Yeah, none of those NIS Classics
right.
PlayStation.
Okay, that's a weird oddity too. I didn't think about that. I just auto assumed like, oh yeah, first Rhapsody's on a PlayStation. Oh yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, that's weird. You know what? It's easily solvable by just having a Switch or PC.
Yep.
There you go.
Wrap out the news section here. We've got a couple of trailers and then a handful of dates that are important to keep in mind. Most of these are, again, February dates, so nothing happens in February. For the two trailers, one of which is a game we've talked about quite a bit, and that is, of course, Like a Dragon Ishin, which is the remake of the previous RGG Ishin, or Yakuza Ishin, which was never officially released in the West, which is now coming out later this year on February 21st. Last week, we talked about the new trailer with the card system embedded in the game. This week, we got a trailer that is basically a story trailer for what this game is. Obviously, it's borrowing a lot of the character models and animations from all the other Yakuza series. We talked when this game was first announced how it's been updated to now introduce some characters from games that originally released after RGG Ishin, such as Yakuza 6 and 7. So we're kind of in the weeds of the marketing here. We're only a few weeks away from Yakuza Ishin, Like a Dragon Ishin officially releasing in the West. I don't know if there's much more to say on that. Josh, I know that you had played this game back when it originally released on PS4.
Yeah, when it released on PS3 and PS4.
3, right, cross-gen.
Yeah. Well, it just looks, like I said, like it just looks so much more vibrant, so much better with the Unreal Engine. I do think it's interesting that one of the major characters this game, like the sworn brother of Ryoma Sakamoto, like his actor was changed to the final boss of Yakuza 0, and one of these screenshots for the trailer. So like interesting them like seeing like which characters from like the more recent, called like Yakuza 0 more recent, because originally, you have to once again remember the original release of Ishin came out before Yakuza 0. It came out after Yakuza 5. I forgot when was it when PS2 Yakuza came out? I'm trying to remember if Yakuza 3 or Yakuza Kenzan was the first PS3 HD title. Then it was like Yakuza 4, Yakuza 5, then Yakuza Ishin, I think. Then it was Yakuza 0. I remember the timeline. But yeah. So it's interesting seeing like, you know, obviously these more popular, iconic, recognizable characters in the West, obviously, make more of an appearance here, like because if they still had it like the old way where you just had a lot of like characters from 3, 4, and 5 still be in here, like a lot of like more recent Yakuza fans will like. Recognize, yeah, exactly.
Like for instance, Yakuza 0, one of a fan favorite antagonists in that game is Kuze. And like, so now I don't know who he's playing as in Ishin, but he's a new model. They're using that character's likeness in Like a Dragon Ishin. And then Yakuza 7, like, Sato he's, you know, they're basically taking all these characters from 0, 6, and 7 and importing them, kind of doing a character model swap, which I think is obviously, if you're a fan of the original likeness, you know, you are losing that, but it is something that, you know, Western fans, at least for a game that's being distributed globally, will have more of a connection to.
It looks the same effect, you know, like, you know, for back then, because like if you were still like playing through 3, 4, and 5 at the time, and like got really into those games, when you jumped into Ishin, you'd be like, oh, I recognize that character. He was from that game, you know. Obviously, like many more Yakuza Like a Dragon games came out after that, and like it'll evoke the same effect, especially for more recent, newer fans to like a bigger audience of like in some ways you're playing through Ishin to like see like, oh, I wonder who I'll recognize next. Who's the next character? Like I'll be like, oh shit, I know where they're from. You know, I recognize that character. You know, and that's a fun flavor to it. That like you can go into this game not knowing, you know, you don't have to have played any of the other Yakuza games, but obviously you'll get something a little extra out of it, because there is like a fan service aspect to these spin-off titles. So I was the same way too, you know. Like Kenzan also had those familiar character models and likenesses into those characters.
And I went to Google a list of all the changes, and it seems like they really hit heavy on Yakuza 0, especially. the three major story antagonists in Zero all are now represented in Like a Dragon Ishin. So
yeah,
they're
very cool too. Like
yeah,
I agree, like they're great characters.
The other trailer that we got is for the upcoming release, also releasing on the 21st, actually, and that is Atomic Heart. So this is the studio game being published by Focus Entertainment, being developed by Russian studio Mundfish. This game is one that we've had a few instances on the podcast to talk about. Mundfish and Focus Entertainment are very clearly and deliberately marketing Atomic Heart as an action RPG. I believe in the opening sections of this new gameplay overview trailer, they reiterate that as an action RPG. I was talking about this with Adam. What this game mostly reminds me of is Prey from 2017. So a very BioShock or System Shock-esque, immersive sim-esque with some RPG light or RPG adjacent elements to it. So if you haven't been keeping up with Atomic Heart, because it is admittedly kind of a lower profile release, releasing at a very crowded time, especially for those that are more interested in games Like a Dragon or Octopath Traveler 2, this new gameplay overview trailer, it's a trailer that if you don't know what this game is, you watch this and it does premise of the story, how the gameplay works, and basically just gives you the whole overview of exactly what this is. So if you haven't had your sated for your BioShock-esque or your Prey-esque or your Dishonored-esque, feelings lately, that's exactly what this game seems to be, at least based on this new trailer. That's sort of the realm it seems to be trying to occupy. So not quite an RPG, even though that's what they say it is.
I don't mean to be critical, like honestly, but you say lower profile release, but there seems to be like an audience for this game. And I mentioned this before also, like that trailer was released 3 days ago and has 150,000 views. Like that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, I guess that's a good thing to keep in mind. I say lower profile because we're so used to like zeroing in on Atlas and Square Enix and things like that. But in the wider space here, yeah, this Atomic Heart is getting a ton of traction.
It is really
something even maybe more interesting. So there's 2 uploads of this trailer, one in English and one in Russian.
Okay.
The English trailer has 144,000. The Russian trailer has 525,000.
Holy shit!
So
I wonder if the optimal way to play this game is in Russian.
I mean, honestly, if I were playing this game, what voices does it even support?
I would hope Russian is one of them.
You'd think so, but I remember what was that game that I played? Steel Rising is a game made by French developers in France, and it didn't have French voices, and it's just like, okay, I would have played it in French.
Yeah, yes, it does support Russian full audio from the Steam.
Yeah, like I would definitely highly consider.
This actually supports a lot of fucking audio from the Steam page.
Wow. What is this? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah,
so it's like, what is that? Nunnery audio?
English, French, German, Spanish, Spain, Russian, simplified Chinese, Polish, Portuguese, Brazil, and Italian
voices, but no Japanese voices.
Japanese subs.
Text, though.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a lot of audio. I wonder what's the file size for this game, dude?
A lot.
It's not as much as Forspoken. No.
So let me go through this because I'm looking at Adam's RPG list. February 14th, Labyrinth of Galleria. February 17th, Wild Hearts. February 17th, Tales of Symphonia Remastered. The 21st, you've got Like a Dragon Ishin and Atomic Heart, the 2 trailers we just talked about. 23rd,
wait, hold on. There's a thing with Like a Dragon Ishin. If you pre-order, you get 3 days early access.
Oh, yeah, Sega does that now. February 23rd, you got Digimon World Next Order and Tyrant's Blessing. February 22nd, you have this mark here, Adam. This is the Redemption Reapers game from the Fire Emblem veterans that you said you were pretty interested in a couple weeks ago on the podcast. And then February 24th, of course, Octopath Traveler 2. So that is like within a week, there's like at least 2 or 3 games there that I want to play, potentially more than that. And like, I have a hard time imagining anyone that follows this site or the sort of games this site covers not having something to play there, or at least your backlog crying out in pain. Like, oof, I want to get to multiple ones of these.
Brian's ultimate result out of all this is he's gonna 100% Forspoken instead of playing these games.
Yeah, if I just focus on Forspoken, then I just don't need to worry about these.
That's right.
What about the Wizard game?
That's coming out. It's coming out on the 10th. So there, if you want it. And then also,
if you want to play it, go play it. I mean, nothing's stopping you if you want to.
Then early in March, we have Wolong Fallen Dynasty, like March 3rd. And then I won't go any further than that, but it doesn't really slow down from there. But
I'm Wolonging.
I still find it very funny. I can say, how long is a good video game? I can't elaborate any more than that.
I love those NDAs.
Well, let's go a little bit more into some of the more recent additions to these February dates. So one of the dates that's actually going to come up just in this next week, literally in the next couple of days, is a demo for a game we've talked about previously on the podcast, and that is Wandering Sword. So what this is that this is an HD 2D like game, so kind of like the Suikoden remaster or 100 Heroes, from the Swordsman Studio, which is a Chinese studio. This is basically a Chinese take on seemingly a mix between Octopath Traveler and Live Alive. So this demo is going to be released on Steam as part of the Steam Demo Festival on February 6th. So by the time you're listening to this podcast, this demo might be already available.
I will have more to say about this next week.
Why is that?
I know, who could say? Who could say?
Because you're going to play the demo.
Obviously. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So this Wandering Sword was originally revealed last May. And so in 2021 and 2022, we've seen a few games take advantage of the new HD 2D like art style. So this was one of the ones that I think seemed to kind of latch on to people's expectations a little bit strongly than some others. But next week we'll have a demo available and we'll be able to poke at it and talk about it a bit more thoroughly.
It's pretty interesting, right? Because it's clearly inspired by Live Alive HD 2D style, and we barely just got a remake of Live Alive in the HD 2D pixel art style. It's kind of a weird renaissance almost in a sort of way. It's like, I think I'm happy about that. I just hope it's not like it doesn't get like super saturated, but like right now I feel like we're still in that like phase of like, okay, there's still like a healthy there's still like a healthy amount of these releases that sort of carry that novelty factor, because there's different takes to it, right?
Right.
When does Dragon Quest 3 release?
Yeah, that's the question that we're all wondering. Then literally the next day, we have the next title update for Monster Hunter Rise is releasing on February 7th, adding a risen version of the Crimson Glow Valstrax, and then also Velkhana from Monster Hunter Iceborne, Monster Hunter World Iceborne.
Afraid of Velkhana. I'm just afraid of risen Valstrax.
I will say that the master rank tempered Velkhana was one of my most stressful fights in Monster Hunter Rise Iceborne. Something about that. And then Valstrax, just the regular version of Valstrax and base Sunbreak was enough for me.
Dude, yeah, I don't want to think about what a risen Crimson Glow Valstrax is.
I like how they just keep adding prefixes to it. Risen, Crimson, Valstrax. And then
let's see if I can unpack exactly how many layers of modifiers are on with this thing. Okay, so Valstrax was the flagship monster for Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, or one of them. There was also, we'll call it the one flagship monster because the other one doesn't really count. Already existed. Crimson Valstrax was a variant of Valstrax that so far is exclusive to Rise. And now Risen Elder Dragons are like basically the equivalent of like Arc-tempered Elder Dragons from like World or Iceborne. And so it's a Risen variant Elder Dragon. What the fuck?
I can't wait till like it actually commits to fucking jet drops on you, and that doesn't make it super choreographed.
This title update, I saw that one thing that people were just kind of at least amused by was there's paid DLC to get these sort of poorly drawn, sketchy, sketchbook type faces and portraits for your characters. Did you see that?
It's very funny.
It's but also it's crazy how much they've monetized this game too.
Yeah, those are. I was looking at how much DLC there is on Steam. It's more than 200 pieces of DLC. Oh, okay.
I mean, it's kind of the same thing with World. World had a bunch of DLC, but a lot of it was just
it's almost all cosmetic.
Music. Yeah, it's cosmetic. Yeah. It's music stuff for your your little hideaway, especially in Iceborne. And then
it's one of those things. Fundamentally, yes, it doesn't alter the game experience itself, But there's also just like this little, like, the boomer inside me is like, but back then we got also.
I do know that a lot of people have complained about it with Rise specifically because there wasn't a lot of like weapon glamours or whatever for like World, and most of the stuff you could buy was specifically like stuff for the handler. But there's definitely been like a slight shift where it's like, oh yeah, here's all of these plush monsters that turn into weapons, and here's all these really like fancy weapons that have unique animations.
I don't know if Capcom will go back and like try to like maybe shift the direction of like their monetization philosophy of like future Monster Hunter titles.
Yeah.
Which is like it's already poisoned the well, or if it's like already done well for them, it's like why would they go back?
I mean, I still don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with what they're doing, because Monster Hunter, like, obviously we still have tons of different armor sets, tons of different weapons. We still get like free events and stuff. So it's like it feels almost like picking to me.
It does. Like, I understand that, but at the same time, it's just like it's one of those things that like I just think about because, like I said, like I went back and I played the shit out of Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate with my friend early last year, and it's just like it was like so weird. I was like, man, I really really missed these kinds of Monster Hunter games. I can't even like elaborate how or why. It's just like it just felt so complete.
But didn't that conversation kick off by one of the producers on Wild Hearts saying that they will not have microtransactions?
And they said no. Yeah, they just recently said no microtransactions and free updates, which, considering it's the $70 video game, better damn well.
Hold on. Let's make that sentence better. They like these are two separate things. No microtransactions, and then hard cutoff, and then there will also be free updates. Not saying no free updates. There will be free updates. No microtransactions.
Yeah. They also they also had like I don't think we actually did a news post on this. They did an AMA on Reddit apparently where they said there's going to be over 20 unique large monsters at launch, which for a new Monster Hunter type game, that's actually pretty damn good.
That's a pretty good number. Yeah. So I'm really curious. I really, really want to play that game. I'm very curious about it. It looks pretty cool.
Good thing you have nothing else on your plate.
Yeah, good.
Nothing else going on. The other news that came out of Capcom this week is that Monster Hunter Rise obviously just recently released on PlayStation and Xbox. But before then, as of December 31st, 2022, back when it was only on PC and Switch, Monster Hunter Rise has already shipped and digital sales of 12 million copies. So still doing very, very well. And obviously we're expecting a bump to that now that it's released on all the consoles as of January of this year.
They also released a really cute artwork with that commemorating the release.
Mm-hmm. I forget the Dango chef's name, little kid.
I forgot the name also.
These Monster Hunter don't have names. They're just called Veteran Hunter or whatever.
Yeah, they call it Dango Chef. That's her name.
There you go. But yeah, obviously still doing really good. It'll be interesting to see exactly how much of an inflection that Monster Hunter World's like absolute runaway success just persists through all Monster Hunter games going forward. Let's see. We also have on February 14th a release of an indie RPG. Nothing else coming out that time. This is Soul of Chronos from Astrolab is the publisher. The developer is Futu Studio. So a new release trailer for that game coming out on the 14th.
This is one of those games where look at the artwork and like that looks really neat, and then you look at the game and it's like, oh.
that was me. I was like, oh man, that nice artwork. Let me go check out this trailer. Oh.
To be clear, it's got like these really chibi models where it's like literally like their head and their feet.
Yeah, it's like the models you'd see like at an ArcSys lobby, like in like Blaze Blue and Grand Blue versus like those little chibi models roaming around those online lobbies. It's like that. It isn't bad. It's just like, but the art style really makes you think it's something different. Which is, all right. So good luck. I mean, it's a good thing they picked a really good time frame where no other games release.
And the last release date that we got is a little bit further out than February. It's for June. This is the Xseed published game from Marvelous, Loop 8 Summer of Gods. I talked about this a few times last year as it was formally announced, I believe originally on a Nintendo Direct. Maybe that might be the case. It'll be releasing on June 6th for the West and that's coming shortly after the Japanese release on June 1st for Loop 8 Summer of Gods.
Yeah, so to be clear, like before this release date came out, like the original release date for Japan was like March 16th. So it was gonna come like next month to Japan originally, but like it was a weird thing because at the time when they announced the release date, like at the Japanese press release, they like mentioned Xseed by name at their Japanese press release that they're releasing it for PC on Steam.
Basically, Xseed is handling the PC version, not Marvelous. So just for logistics, they're like, this is also coming out for PC, but it's Xseed. And so they sort of announced a release date for the PC version for Xseed, but Xseed never like confirmed it themselves, and I guess that was for the better because it was delayed anyway.
Yeah, so so the Japanese version still got a pretty big delay back to June 1st, right? And then was it June? Is it delayed back to June 1st in Japan also for the console?
Yeah, it's June 1st for Japan, June 6th for the West and PC.
Wait, hold on. Release in the West, is it okay? I got it. So it's released in the West is still for consoles and PCs on June 6th, and then in Japan, the console versions in Japan are June 1. Right. Okay, got it.
And it is all consoles. So Xbox One's playable on Xbox Series, PS4, so playable on PS5, Switch. It was originally announced on a February 2022 Nintendo Direct in Japan.
It's playable on Switch too, right? Like the others, right?
and then of course the PC release from Xseed.
PC also playable on PC and playable on PC.
On PC
also
too.
supports PC. The PC too. I can't wait for it.
Anyways, this game sort of looks like it's like a social sim turn-based RPG. It's like set in a rural town, sort of like a tiny element to Persona, only not like, by that I mean just like social sim RPG. But I need to kind of see more to understand like its actual structure, because it's honestly a little bit like I'm not entirely certain how it's actually structured.
Me too. I feel bad for mentioning this and surfacing this name, but when the character moves around the environment in that release date trailer, you know what it reminds me of?
What?
Time and Eternity.
For those who aren't familiar, Time and Eternity was a PlayStation 3 game that was like, what was that company's name?
Oh fuck, I don't remember the company's name, man. But it's like
Idea Factory, but it's not Idea Factory.
The big feature of that game way back when was like, this game looks just like an anime. Like that was a big deal back then.
Image Epoch.
That's right.
Remember Image Epoch?
Oh. So yeah, that was a big deal back then. Of a game actually looking like an anime. It's like, oh yeah, it does actually look like an anime. Holy shit! But then like they kept on focusing on this, their marketing campaign for it. And then like the month before the game actually came out, we had no idea what the fuck the game actually looked like in motion. And then they released the gameplay look into it, like a gameplay trailer. It's like, oh, that's what it looks like. Great. Fuck,
RPG site has one of the highest review scores for this game. Thanks, Zach.
I'm not going to say anything.
And by highest review scores, I mean like a 7.
But still, I'm not going to say anything. But I mean that's I'm not going to say that like Loop 8 is like going to match the quality of that game, for better or for worse. It's just like the first thing I thought of in my head because my brain is broken, and when I see that sort of style in a game, I'm like, that looks like Time and Eternity. Fuck me, dude.
Oh my god, you have memories of that game.
I'm not saying I like that game. I'm just saying it's just
but you still remember that.
It's memorable for the wrong reason.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It's fuck. God. It's not my fault that was like the first game I saw that had that like sort of style of motion in games, and that just stuck with me because it was like, oh no.
Good thing Nisa didn't brought it up for their anniversary. They localized it.
Yeah. Let's get back Time and Eternity. Let's re-release that for the let's go.
Hey, maybe Axis will re-release it. They're re-releasing. Agarest War for some reason.
Dude, if they did a re-release of Time and Eternity, oh my god.
Time and Eternity for Switch.
That would be so disgusting.
I'm pretty sure I said this on a previous podcast, but when I saw that press release for Agarest, I like literally laughed out loud. It's like, this is the last thing I expected, and why this game of all games?
Let's fucking go. Oh my god, Agarest is such a good game.
So yeah, Loop 8 releasing June 6th.
Oh my god.
All right, so let's see. The next time we record, it'll be the 11th. That's pretty much right before everything hits.
Man, I'm not saying Loop 8's gonna be bad. I have no idea. I just feel bad summoning fucking bad games. We mentioned Time and Eternity, then it went to Agris because of Loop 8. Damn, I feel bad.
Going to be near heavy hitters in June. Obviously, Final Fantasy 16 and Diablo 4, unless there's a lot of rumors of that getting delayed. I don't think it's been confirmed. Still currently slated
when
for
is Street
June.
Fighter 6 again? Just curious.
June.
Also June. Yeah. So yeah, June's getting pretty packed pretty quickly.
I'm sorry, Granby. We were like, you need to come out before Street Fighter 6, or else I don't care about you.
I mean, no, I don't know what would be a good release date for Relink. Not released anywhere near FF16, or else it dies. So.
Oh, I'm talking about. Oh, I mean the fighting game, the Versus.
Oh right,
Rising.
You said Relink. I'm like,
I'm sorry, I get the titles mixed up.
Oh, okay, amazing.
I'll be first Street Fighter 6.
I don't know. I don't know if I wanted to come or after Street Fighter 6. I think at this point I want Rising to come like around November.
I don't know. I just feel like if it comes out after Street Fighter 6, everyone's not gonna. They're just gonna.
I mean, yeah, I guess so, right? Because when you're thinking about feature sets, like fucking, we could make a case that Street Fighter 6 is an RPG because it does have an RPG. Like it does have RPG system.
All right, Street Fighter 6 is now RPG, guys. Because
are we doing the review? I mean, you could do the review if you want. Are you signing up?
Yeah.
I mean, whether or not we can pretend it's an RPG or not hasn't stopped us from talking about fighting games on this podcast before.
Dude, imagine if like people just went to the site one day, they say Street Fighter 6 review by you, Chow, out of nowhere.
Yeah, it has equipment, world tour, level ups. What is there more to say?
Yeah, I mean, fuck.
Do you save the world from God?
Yes, I just killed Seth.
Okay,
and Gil.
Yeah, you're right. It is a JRPG. Thanks for you.
A homeless bum killing God.
Yeah, JRPG right there.
Well, without further ado, that covers us for this edition of the Tetracast. I like how we still get 2.5 hours worth of discussion, even on a week where there's not much to talk about, as is our specialty. So, of course, February is going to be incredibly packed pretty quickly, and we're all working behind the scenes on all the stuff that's coming out soon for that. You can read all the articles, the news, and James's 2 features in Final Fantasy XIV, including all of the recent reviews on the site, rpgsite.net. You can find RPG Site on all the social media platforms. Just search for RPG Site on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, and you should be able to find us pretty quickly. You can join our Discord at discord.gg/RPG Site or by hitting the link at the top of our homepage. If you've listened to this and you're enjoying it, go ahead and leave us a review on Spotify or Google Podcasts or wherever you listen to us, or leave us a comment either on the YouTube upload or on the site post. We love to hear from you, whether or not we're doing well or there's things we can be doing better. And we will be back next week with another edition of the Tetracast. Look forward to hearing from us then. Stay safe and take care, and we'll talk to you later.